This episode of Who Thought We'd Be Here is brought to you by Joker Ink Apparel Decorating Company, your ultimate destination for screen printing, embroidery, and full-color digital printing. Whether it's bold apparel that makes heads turn or promotional swag that leaves a mark, we've got the expertise to make your vision come alive. And the best part, we handle orders from just one piece to a whopping 1 million. No project is too big or too small. With Joker Ink, your imagination is the limit. Our skilled team ensures every design pops with vibrancy, while our state-of-the-art technology guarantees precision and quality. Ready to make your brand unforgettable? Call us now at 845-863-3460 or visit jokerink.com. That's JOKERINK.com. Joker Inc., where creativity meets limitless possibilities. Get noticed, get remembered. Contact Joker Inc. today at 845-863-3460 or visit www.jokerinc.com.
Don't work, I take a second to breathe, yeah. Breathe in, breathe out. Couple rain clouds ain't gon' get me down. I say, breathe in, breathe out. I'm getting back to me. All the things I do, all the things I say, all the times I took a chance, all of the mistakes I made, none of it matters.
Alrighty. How am I coming in? Yep.
Nice.
All right.
All right, take it away, man.
All right. Thanks for doing this, Brian.
Well, to be honest, like, who thought we'd be here?
Yeah. There we go. We didn't even have to ask him to say it.
Yep, there we
You
go.
know? No, it's an honor to have you guys in because like Steve, I haven't known you too long, but I've known JP, and anytime that there was a story coming in, it always mentioned you. So you were always like around, and always in an idea that he had. So it's great to have this like rocking and rolling, and the setting. I like the setting.
Yeah.
It's a good setting.
Came together at. All we had to do was just completely flip my living room around, right?
That's it.
That's the only thing we had to do, right?
Thanks.
If they could see the other side of this, it would just be everything in the wrong place.
Well, isn't that how a lot of things, everything looks a mess, but we're all focused on the nice and neat,
Exactly.
neat, tidy.
But that's a good metaphor for life, is that like oftentimes we try to show only the parts that look good and the parts that are going well. And then everybody thinks that things are going so good, but then it's just like, hey, if you just flip the camera around, you'd realize that my life is a fucking mess right now.
It's called social media.
Yeah,
That's exactly what
yeah.
we lie about everything on social media.
Yeah, man.
So you guys came up with this idea to create this podcast, right? Now, in the beginning, how afraid were you guys to be vulnerable in front of a camera, or even when you saw yourself editing? This is a big thing, right? So when people hear themselves on audio, or they hear themselves on video, or see themselves, I know I did. I cringed. I was like, like it was disgusting. I didn't want to hear myself. I was like, I hate it, but I got used to it. Did you get used to it quicker? Or was it harder to kind of, I guess, fade into it?
So for me, I think once we sat down and started recording the first episode, it became a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Because in your head, you always have like this idea that it's like impossible. Like you build up so many obstacles in your mind. But once you get out there and actually do it, it's not nearly as bad as you think. I think maybe for you, because JP does a lot more of the editing, it might be harder. I know that I personally don't like listening to my voice back. Like when we're going through and we're looking for stuff to clip, that's something that I'm still struggle with right now. Like I don't like hearing the sound of my own voice. Video so much like isn't really a big deal for me. I mean, I don't really watch anything we put out, honestly. Like I post a clip and then I'm done with it. So for me, it was just overcoming like that first episode, like getting it out there and putting it out there, because I think for both of us, maybe, I know at least for me, doing the podcast wasn't something I was worried about. I struggle with judgment and like how I'm going to be judged, how people are going to perceive this, like what people are going to think. And now this would be episode 20, like for us that we're recording.
Yeah.
So at this point, I kind of just don't give a fuck anymore. Like this is therapeutic for me. So I go out and I get to say what's on my mind. Me and JP have a really meaningful conversation every time we sit down and do this. It's become a lot easier for me. But I mean, at the beginning, it was definitely more of what is everybody going to think about this for me.
Yeah, I would say like the same. I mean, honestly, I was looking at the stuff, and in the beginning it was hard, but the main thing that I really latched onto that gave me life when I was doing this was next week there's always another one. So in the beginning, like when you looked at it and you're like, oh, I could have made this camera angle better, I should have recorded the sound better, or like I could have, you know what I mean? There's always like the next week to do something better and to improve upon it. And it went from this thing of dwelling on the mistakes, and it quickly shifted to, I get to look at this so I can improve upon this every single week. And then you get to see kind of, I think one of the things that we talked about a lot in the beginning was, let's just do it. And like, it'll be amazing to turn around and I don't think we thought it would happen this quickly, but to turn around so quickly and then be like, look at how far we've come. This is where we started from. We just started sitting in Inner's backyard with no microphones, no nothing. And then like now we're sitting here. You'll be our fourth guest.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I mean, I guess like we're doing a crossover, whatever, however,
Right.
but you know what I mean? Like, and now to even the point like that somebody else asked us to be on theirs. That is, so like for me, it was definitely you have to shift your mindset around this. Like, stop thinking about like, this is your only opportunity to make something good, to you get to continue to come back to this and have the blessing of, I get to look at this and make this better.
Right. Okay, so with that answer, I want to dive deep into something. All three of us, we discussed having therapists, going to therapy, right? We're all doing that, right?
I've been to therapy one time.
Okay. But this is therapeutic for you, right? Okay. So it might be a little bit of a different question. JP might have a different answer than you, but I will start with you. What kind of progress have you noticed knowing that this is therapeutic and this is a way to get things out, and you are like, wow, I'm learning X about myself, I'm learning Y about myself, and it's starting to actually, you can see the light of change. You can see the turning of like, wow, this new person in me is actually starting to pop his head out and saying, hey, I'm here too, right? Like I can grow out of this old body that you made me, and the habits, the stupid shit that we always used to do, and even if they're not stupid shit, but things that we need to crawl out of to become a better person, crawl out of to not be in the comfort zone, right? We all know about the comfort zone. How is that for you? Have you noticed that change?
So it's been 446 days since I started meditating, which is like my biggest form of therapy for myself. And over the course of that, I feel that I've grown significantly. And then when we started doing this podcast, a lot of the stuff that I had been working on internally began to come out, and to actually have somebody to sit there and have the conversation about what's going on inside with has really opened the door for me, because I feel that like this is my purpose. Like my purpose, what my intention is, what our intention's always been, is to bring to light that you can change, and that like the thoughts in your head don't have to always be the way that they've been. So for me, when we get to sit down and do this, I feel like from the person that I was in the past, I can see the growth, because I would have never taken these steps in the past to try and help somebody else, because I was so ego driven and so worried about just me and what was going on with me, and not really giving a shit about anybody else, that like I see the progress every time we sit down and we have a meaningful conversation, whether it's about mental health, addiction, whatever is going on at the time. Being able to sit here and talk about these things and be open about them has given me a new perspective of myself that I never had before, because like I said, I was so worried about judgment from everybody else and what they thought of me, and the picture that my ego had drawn in my head of what I was supposed to be and how my life was supposed to be, that I never took the time to work through these things. So now getting to sit here and do this, like, it's not real therapy, but it is to me. You know what I mean? Like, these conversations, even just the one we're going to have today, these are meaningful, impactful conversations where I get to pull something out that, like, I know is in there, but I haven't fully grasped, and I can bring it to light, and then I see it, and I see the progress the day after. You know, I feel like we talk about this all the time. Every time we sit down and record, the feeling of bliss afterwards, and the next day, it's like being high on mushrooms, you know? You've been doing this for how long now?
2016.
Jesus. So, like,
8
I
years.
can only imagine for you, like, how much progress you've seen in yourself by sitting down and opening up and having these conversations, doing these interviews.
Yeah, it's still liberating, right? So there's still stuff that I learn about myself, even seeing a therapist. So I'm still sitting here and, like, how do I apply what I just learned in therapy onto the next interview too? How can I be that much more honest? How can I be that much more relatable to people who are listening? So it's 100%. I do have a question that runs with that too.
Okay.
So you talked about ego. Specifically with you, where did that ego come from? How was it built from your childhood?
Yeah, Brian asked the good questions.
So, I would say, for me as a kid, sports was definitely something. I thought I was pretty good at baseball growing up, and like that was like an opening for me. My relationship with my brother, he was somebody that I looked up to, and I saw the way that he lived his life, and I kind of tried to follow in those footsteps for a really long time. And he was a good athlete, still is, like, and that athletics, obviously, I think was probably the thing that really started it for me. But then I found, as I got older, I was always very social. I always kind of was in, like, the popular group, if that's how you want to say it. And that brought it out of me, trying to impress those people to maintain that status. And then as I got into the restaurant business, I think that's where it really became apparent, especially in my early 20s when I first got handed the reins of being, you're the guy behind the bar, and the bartender in every restaurant is the face of the business. And I think that grew on me a lot. And as I got better at it and people kept telling me how good I was at it, I don't think that I had an inflamed ego as a child so much. I think my 20s is what defined who I was. I didn't really have, like, a sense of self until my 20s. I think, like, with the drinking and the drug abuse, and then being in that position and making the money that I was making, it all went right to my head. And I think that's where my ego skyrocketed. I'd probably say 20 to 22 was probably where it really developed and where it took a stranglehold on my life. And I kind of just let it ride because I didn't know any better at the time. And there was no work on myself or taking time to be still, or I didn't journal. I didn't do any of that. All I did was drink, work, party, and so on, you know?
You mentioned your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to dive into that. I don't know. I don't know the age difference. I have nothing.
He's 12 years older than me.
12 years. Okay, I was gonna guess actually closer. Having such a gap, why was there such a focus on being like him?
My dad is divorced once, so he's technically my stepbrother. We always had a very close relationship growing up. He was somebody that always looked out for me. He lived in Queens and I lived in New Windsor, so that we were apart, but when we were together, it was like I always wanted to like cling to that relationship and like try and be like his right-hand man, and like that was, the age difference is too big for it to ever be like that. I was trying to manifest a relationship with him that I don't think was ever really possible because of the distance and the age gap.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's things that I like think about all the time, like just the way I tried growing up to like basically be exactly like him. Just that really affected, like he worked in a restaurant. Like I kind of just followed everything that he did and tried to do it to that standard. My dad and him have a very close relationship. Me and my dad are just developing that relationship. So I think there was a part of me too that always was like, why does he have such a better relationship with my parents than I do? And like, why can't I have that? Like, and I would see the things that went on in his life and want that. And I never really focused on like what I wanted, you know?
Does it feel like now, I mean, as a grown man, does it feel like you were grasping for something that you weren't getting from your father?
I think so. I think it was that, like I said, I saw the relationship that they had. They're very close. They have a lot of things in common.
Yeah.
And I don't think I shared that with my dad. So, like, me and him were close when I was younger. And then when my sister was born, I kind of, like, the distance showed, you know, like we didn't have the same kind of relationship that him and my brother maintained while he was raising another child.
Yeah.
That like I would have liked to have. I think now it's become, me and him are very open with each other. At least I'm way more open with him. I'm a lot more open with everybody, but with him I try to like actually express it to him so he knows, because now my dad's getting older and I don't want to look back at the time that I was trying to chase that relationship I saw him and my brother having.
Yeah.
I'd rather just develop my own relationship with him now.
Did you ever say it like that to him?
I've talked to my dad a lot more recently. We've talked about sitting down and doing this with him. I want to just sit down and I want to get to know him for the years that I didn't, because our relationship was kind of strained because I didn't have the relationship I wanted with him or that I pictured with him. Yeah. So I kind of just pushed him away. And like I said, from when I started working in a restaurant, I kind of just, the bartender was who I grasped to. Like I developed a closer relationship with people that I worked with that I looked up to then than I had with my father.
So, all right. So safe to say, and you could obviously correct me if I'm wrong here, a little bit of enviousness, is that, or just envy, right?
Yeah, probably.
I'm just making up words here today. Welcome to the show.
No, but be the name of the episode, enviousness.
Enviousness. Probably towards your father. Obviously a relationship that you wanted, you couldn't have, so you're looking through the closest person as a man that was closest to him, right? And you're grasping that through him, but he also looked out for you, right? Your stepbrother. But knowing that, you know, your sister comes in, now it's even farther, right? Now you're not where you thought you'd be at all with it. So you get power possibly behind a bar. You're the guy to go to. You're the face of it, which you never were here. Now you are here. You have all the attention. You have the power to tell somebody no. You're cut off today. Or you have the power to charm somebody. Being a bartender, I've had 2 on the podcast. It's a lot of power. It's a lot of power. Yep. And I could see the way that you described it, how ego can shoot up. You know what I mean? That's a lot to share. So I mean, thank you for sharing that, because that's a lot, and it's a lot to connect.
That's what we're here for, man.
Yeah. JP.
Honestly, I was feeling like a fly on the wall there. I was gonna leave. You guys were having such a good combo, man.
No, man.
I was like, shit, man.
I would never forget.
No, that's what's beautiful about this, is that like bringing people together and like that moment couldn't happen without me and him being friends. And like,
Yes.
I love that.
So beginning question, same to you, and you have a therapist.
Yes.
Have you noticed an increase in therapy or things moving a little bit faster having this show, questions that have been asked by Steve towards you, and maybe your life and those, I don't want to say problems, but certain inquisitions that go left and right and you're always trying to figure things out, are those moving a little bit faster because of this show?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that we discussed it. Like, I mean, we always bring up the time when you interviewed me, which just like it felt like there was some type of breakthrough in that for not just our friendship, but for just like me as a person and realizing what I'm supposed to be doing. And a big part of when we started doing this podcast was just that you got to let go of what other people think. And for me, as somebody who's so long even into adulthood, was just so, yeah, like it's not that you're so wrapped up in, but I mean, that's the easiest way to put it, which is that like you're wrapped up in like, what will people think if I'm like this? And I wanted to be the person that everybody liked versus putting my foot in the sand and saying, this is who I am. And if you don't like that or you don't agree with that, then that's fine. But I was more focused on the 5% that didn't like me, just to make up a number, versus putting my energy towards the people who liked me for who I am and wanted me to be more of that and wanted me to be more authentic. And when we started doing this, like, I always say, like, if it was just me and I started this podcast, there'd be 3 episodes out right now and they'd be a half an hour long. But we've got 20 episodes and there's an hour, hours and hours of content in there. Yeah. And for me, I think it was working through something of, you got to be who you are. You can't get caught up in saying the right thing to make everybody love you. You got to say what's real for you, and then you attract the people and the things that are meant for you, versus trying to be like this, like pop star person who everybody likes.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like that is the biggest thing that has happened from doing this podcast, is just being able to say and getting comfortable with opening yourself up to, I am who I am. And you notice what comes back to you when you're being true to yourself versus trying to be this, that cover version of yourself that is trying to please everybody and trying to be like so likable that you lose yourself in it. And also, like, one of the things I really realized was that in trying to be that, people who are authentic notice that, and people who are really like aware of who they are can tell that you're trying to say the right thing versus trying to be who you're really meant to be. And in a way, you feel like, wow, like, what opportunities did I miss out on? What things could have happened for me if, instead of trying to make the whole group as a whole, the whole world love me, versus saying like, this is who I am and I don't really care what anybody else thinks of that, and the people who align with that, that's who I'm meant to be around.
I want to go back to when you said you were chasing the other 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think by chasing the 5%, it takes away the attention from the people, the other 95 that are actually caring about you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what was so important about the 5%?
It's a great question. I mean, I think for me, like, a lot of, we talked about, like, you've worked in restaurants for a lot longer than I have, but I didn't feel like I really found that about myself until I worked in restaurants. Yeah. And because there's this kind of thing that nobody really talks about, but that is 100% there, which is that we all focus on like the one person who's a dick to you and like why won't they be nice to me? Whether it's a random person like a customer who comes in, or it's the one coworker you don't get along with, or it's the one girl who you like who doesn't like you back. We have like it, but you have that focus on like, oh, this guy was such a dick to me, and everybody races back to the kitchen to say like, oh, like P27's being a fucking douche to me. Like, what can we do to get back at him?
Right.
But nobody's in the back there being like, table 17 was so nice. They were so sweet. Like, no, like, I mean, or even if you do talk about it, it's like a quick moment and then you forget about it. Versus like you're focusing on, I'm so good at this. I'm doing the right thing. Like, why doesn't everybody like me? And then, but then you realize that you're missing out and you're shoving this part of yourself down that isn't even like a negative thing. Like, we're not talking about being like, you're shoving down the part of you that like wants to be a dickhead. We're talking about shoving down the person that like speaks your mind and that isn't afraid to be vulnerable about the things that they like. And when you lose that and you do that for kind of years, like for me, that's I can't necessarily figure out exactly where that started to turn around, and I started to get more comfortable in my own skin, probably when I started going to therapy. Mm-hmm. But when I started to let go of, people are going to judge you either way, so why not just be who you're supposed to be? Like, and you shove down that voice in yourself that tells you that you need to be a certain way, or that you can't upset anyone, or that you can't, like, there's nothing wrong with being that person. And I think for so long I thought that there was something wrong with me, but realistically I was just trying to, like I said, be like the likable version of yourself versus the authentic version of yourself.
Yeah. Have you always chased the 5%?
I think so, for sure. Like when I was, even I always felt like in elementary school and even into high school, I would say I was in the popular group, but I always kind of felt like the outsider. I was always the one who felt like, I was on the outside looking in. That like I was I was one embarrassing moment away from not being the cool kid anymore. And that I was hanging on by a thread the whole time.
What made that though? What made you think that, okay, so you're on eggshells, obviously.
Yeah, you can put it that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one stupid thing away from, what was the fear? So you say X in your own head that you've made up, right? Mm-hmm. You've made this up in your own mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
You say X. What's the worst thing that could happen? What was your fear to those 5%?
You know what I don't even know if it was the 5%. I think it was this like deep down feeling. And like I had it with you. I had it with a lot of my friends growing up, which is the feeling that I think deep down they don't like me. Deep down they feel bad for me and they're only like hanging out with me for whatever reason.
Yeah. And
I can't necessarily pinpoint like where that came from. It may have came from the household that I grew up in. Like that certainly is a valid. And I think that maybe it came from, I was afraid of taking the wrong side. And like maybe the one side is the side of being, I'm blanking on what the right word is.
Like accepted.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was afraid of taking the side that wouldn't accept me, and then I couldn't go back to either side.
And your parents were also divorced?
So my parents didn't get divorced until or separated. I'm honestly like, I don't know the details of that whole scenario, but they didn't separate and move out of the house until I was 18 and went away to college.
Okay.
But things were rough in the house, and there was always a lot of disagreements, and there was a lot of this side, that side, and very like, and I think that's kind of where I developed this idea of things are very black and white, because I thought that you know, my mom and my dad, as I got older, had such opposing viewpoints. Not that either one of them was wrong or right, but especially in terms of like how I would be handled. And I think that a lot of times I acted out. I got into, you know, I wouldn't call it like bad trouble, but I got into a lot of trouble, like being a nuisance in class and saying things that were crazy just to get attention. And there was a lot of division of my dad wanting to deal with it in one way and my mom wanting to deal with it in one way. My dad was very much like, I want him to find things out for himself. And if he fucks up, and he's got to learn that for himself. And my mom was very much like, I need to protect you. I need to keep you and shield you from everything. And that's where I kind of developed this thing of it has to be this way or that way. There's no kind of middle ground.
That comfort zone has got to be a pain in the ass then.
It's always been like, and now I've kind of developed this thing of knowing full well that the thing I'm scared of and the thing that makes me uncomfortable is exactly what I need to be doing.
Okay.
But for many years, I avoided that.
What side did you more lean towards, your father's or your mother's?
Oh, definitely. Like me and my dad got along a lot well. Because like, and I mean, at the time when you're a teenager, of course you want the freedom of go out there and do it. My dad was always the one who said yes. My mom was usually the one who said no.
Okay.
So, and like, I didn't want to be, my mom's also very religious and my dad's not. And that was a big differentiate for them. And when like I eventually got to kind of like an age where I started making my own decisions, that was one of the first ones where I was able to, like, I could go to my dad. Like, I remember very clearly, I don't even know if I've told you this story, but do you remember when we burned each other with cigarettes?
Yeah.
When we were in high school?
Still
when
have
we first
mine.
started? Yeah, so like, you still have yours? So
Yeah.
like, mine is up by where my tattoo is.
Why
But
would you forget something like that?
no, I didn't forget it.
No, I know. We said, I don't know if you would remember. I would remember
Yeah.
being fucking burned.
No, but we did it to each other. It's not like it was like we were just dumb kids. And mine got like infected and like looked like really bad. And I remember like the moment where I went to my dad and I was like, I can't tell mom about this. Like please, can you help me? I'm like, we went to like the store and he like helped fix me up and we kept it a secret. And like that's probably still a secret till now unless she listens to this episode. But
She's like, dumbass.
yeah, but yeah. but then and like kind of realizing in that moment, like I kind of always knew that, but then it was just like, okay, like it's better for me to go to him about this than it is for me to like keep this quiet. Like I feel like if I get drunk at a party, I can call him and he'll be, you know, he may be upset that I'm getting drunk, but he'd rather I'm safe than approach it with anger.
Okay.
And I think that like, and that's still to this day, like me and my dad are as close as can be. And it's one of the best relationships that I have. But I think that it created this idea of there's this one idea, there's this other idea, and there may be millions of other sides to take, but to me, I have to look at it like there's one option or the other. So it was like picking his side was shunning her out. And that's tough when you're, you know, guys have, you know, special relationships with their moms.
Yeah.
And it was tough for me to, like, even though I didn't necessarily make that decision, it's a two-sided thing, but it was definitely a tough thing to, not, like, you know, I couldn't go to my mom about, like, issues that I had with girls, you know?
Yeah.
And to not, like, ever have that female perspective.
So you say if you chose your father's side, right, you would it's kind of like blocking your mom out, right?
That's not necessarily what happened, but that's what it felt like.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you feel the same way when you would choose your mom's side about your dad?
What do you mean?
So if you chose your mom's side, right, did it feel like you shut your dad out?
Well,
that certain times, like if you were to have that relationship with your mom at times, you know, because I'm sure you did.
No,
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did it ever feel the other way where you felt like you shut your dad out? Not that you say you did, but you felt that way.
I don't think so, but like, I mean, realistically, if I'm just being honest, like, there were very few times where me and her got along. Like, for long stretches of time.
Yeah.
And I think I took it as, not that, like, one of them would be mad if I took the other side, but I think I just took it as, like, if I'm going to take this side, then I'll look like a fool if I go back to the other one. Even though, like, that's not even how it works. Like, that doesn't even, like, make sense.
But that's going on in your head.
Exactly, yeah. And then that kind of translated into feeling like, and I still struggle with it now, which is, like, being multiple things and being capable of change and being able to look back and go, like, I was wrong. Or being able to go back and say, like, okay, like, maybe this was a good decision for me 3 years ago, but now it's not. And being able to be honest with yourself like that.
Okay, so I want to go back, and you motherfuckers have to take me behind this burning yourselves. You have to tell me this fucking story. You can't just, we just kind of burned each other. Like, okay, something happened. Something had to get lit on fire, and then you had to go through your fucking epidermis.
Oh,
so,
it was a cigarette.
Explain this. Why? I'm
well
well aware.
I don't know if there's anything really there other than we were young and stupid, and we were like, yo, I'm going to brand you with this cigarette when I get done smoking.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, let me do it back.
Yeah.
How old were you?
Like 16,
Yeah,
17.
we had to be like 15, 16.
We were definitely in high school. Like,
Yeah.
A bunch of badasses. Okay, I see.
We would go to Goldbacks and buy Lucy's.
yeah, man.
During we would go to the
free period, we would just leave NFA.
and then we would sneak back in with the gym classes who were coming back in.
Goldbacks was right on the corner, right?
Yeah. And there was like a line of houses with sheds behind them.
Yeah.
And we would go get one Lucy each because that was our limit. Like, I can only smoke one cigarette. And we'd get a Dutch and we'd roll up a blunt and smoke behind the sheds and then smoke our cigarette as we walk back to the gym and sneak in with the gym class.
Yeah, I think we just wanted to be cool. Like, it was definitely like a thing where we could be like,
sold.
Go back into school and be like,
yo, I'm high as fuck right now. How's math class?
Yeah. But we were just like, we wanted, like, I don't know. There's no other way of explaining it other than, like, we probably weren't getting the attention that we wanted in whatever ways that was for me and you. So we were like, if we go back and tell everybody at school, like, we just burned each other with cigarettes. Check this out. You know, like that. There's really no other way of explaining it other than that, I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this thing that we, like, plotted and set out to do. Like, and I couldn't even tell you, like, no, actually, you know what? Like, it was probably your idea.
Yeah.
It was definitely your idea. It was definitely your idea. Like, come on, bro, just let me burn you with a cigarette. And then I was like, well, I'm going to do it back to you. If you and then that's where that came from.
Way to just throw blame on somebody.
No, but I mean,
I hung out with the older kids a lot, and they probably did it to me, which is why I was like, yo, let me do it to you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. You mentioned, Steve, meditation before. At what point did you realize meditation was a route that you wanted to explore? What was going through your mind at that point to make you want to go that direction? And what is the difficulty of starting that and continuously progressing through that?
So, for me, when I first started meditating, I was definitely deeply I had a heavy cocaine problem. It was something that, like, it had gotten to the point where I didn't want to be doing it, but I still was. Yeah. And, like, it just became a habit and an escape for me. So I had downloaded the Calm app on my phone and paid the $70 for it. And I think that was in August of 2022. And I used it to try and sleep better one night. And I never touched it again. And in October, when I was really struggling with using cocaine and drinking a lot, and I kind of felt that I was spiraling, but as a young man, I didn't want to say anything to anybody. Like, you're afraid to ask for help. And I had a friend that listened to the musician Mike. He used to be known as Mike Stud. He's just Mike now.
Okay.
And Huddy put me onto his music, and I listened to his music, and I liked the vibe of it. And then I found out he had a podcast, and his podcast is about mental health as well. Like, he talks about like relevant stuff, but he has like athletes and stuff on, like people you respect, like that you like want to, like, I love golf, so like Max Homa was on, and that was probably the episode that clicked for me. He was asking him like about his mental health and stuff, and then he had an episode with Eben Britton where they talked like really about like getting centered. And listening to that, he had been talking about yoga and meditation, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, let me try it. And on October 26th, I sat down for the first time and I did the Daily Calm, and it's just a 10-minute guided meditation. And I sat down, and it was rough. Like, I don't know if I calmed myself whatsoever, but like I made it through that. And then he has like books that he had recommended, so I started reading like a chapter out of one of the books, and I built myself a little morning routine that day. And I continued to do that every single day, but at the same time, I was still going to work at 4 o'clock, and then starting to drink, and then getting a bag and doing blow until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning on just like every night. Like on the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, it didn't fucking matter. And in March, I like realized that if I'm going to continue to meditate and get something out of it, and I'm going to continue to journal and really like hone in on this lifestyle, that I needed to stop doing everything else. And I was sitting at home one night, and I had like come home from work. I'd probably been drinking way more than I needed to, and I had a baggie, and I'm just sitting downstairs in my parents' house playing Xbox, like doing blow at 2 o'clock for no reason. And I took the baggie and I flushed it down the toilet, and I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm not doing this shit anymore. And that week I stopped drinking too. And I don't know if I ever get to that step or get through that if I didn't start meditating. And like you said, at the beginning of meditation, it's super, like, because everybody thinks that when you sit down and you meditate, you're closing your eyes and nothing's happening. But that's not how this works. Like, you're going to have your thoughts, and like, I don't know, how long does it take you? It normally takes me 10, 15 minutes to like start to get still, you know?
It depends
and then
where
like,
I'm at.
there's different types of it. Like, I do a lot of affirmations when I'm meditating. Like, I'll wait until I'm still, and then I start affirming to myself things that I want from my life, and things that I want and I believe are going to happen to me. And just the process of sticking to that every day made it easier as time went by. But now, being where I'm at, I look back and I'm like, thank God I did that. And it's also reaffirming to me that like things change. Like I'm almost, like I said, it's 4:49 for 4:48 today, whichever one it is. I have that many days of meditation under my belt, like where I sat there and I did something for me. And that's the biggest thing with meditation for me, is I know that I took the time when I woke up in the morning to do something to better myself, so my day goes smoother and is easier. And then through that, I'm also a better friend to him. I'm a better like sibling for my sister or my brother. I have a better relationship with my parents because I'm not anxious and freaking out and have all these crazy thoughts in my head, because I took the time in the morning to start my day off on a positive note.
Yeah. In the beginning, when you first started that, was it frustrating? Did you have like an expectation, I guess is what I'm asking, of, like you said, it's not like X like everybody thinks, right? Mm-hmm. Did you have an expectation going into, and was it frustrating possibly if you had an expectation that you weren't matching it?
So I don't know if it was an expectation that I expected right away, because I had listened to so many people talk about meditation, and because I was doing the guided meditations, I very quickly learned and heard from other people that it's not something that just comes to you. It's like I gave him the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari is a really big book for me. And it talks about in that, like, the process of getting into meditation and how to stick with it. And I think for me, because I had expectations of where my life was going to be 6 months after I started, a year down the road, just like visions that I would visualize of how it was going to be. But like in the moment when I first started meditating, I think because I had so many people telling me and because I listened to those guided meditations, not every sit is going to be perfect. And when you do sit down and you start to get frustrated, the biggest thing of meditation is just letting that go. Like there's going to be days where you sit and you can't get your mind to stop, or like you're anxious, the position doesn't feel right. Like sometimes like I'll feel my ankle on like my thigh and I'm like, God, that's irritating. But that's the biggest step in meditation, I think, is when you sit down and there are things going around. There's distractions, but you stay focused. You keep your eyes closed and you just stay and sit for that 10 minutes. That at the end of it, you can realize like, I was a little bit frustrated during meditation, but this is the outcome, and this is what I wanted anyway, to be able to just be in the moment. That's what meditation is, right? Like being present.
Yeah, being present was a huge part of it for me.
So like if you're present with knowing that like, my back's like a little bit tight today, or like, God, I wish they would lower the TV in the living room, but you sit there and you stay through that, that's a win for me.
Yeah. You know, almost like blocking it out, realizing like, and I think we've all done it with maybe vision of some sort, right? Like if you're laser focused on something, it's almost like your peripheral doesn't matter, right? I'm guessing you do that with sound, right? Like everything else just falls to the side, falls around the waistline, and it doesn't exist anymore because your focus is on X, on Y, and it's for a greater meaning, right? So you introduced JP to a book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a couple.
Yeah,
A couple of them.
We're big book readers over
it would be
here,
hard for
as we thought
somebody
we'd
to
be here.
give me at this point better book recommendations. And the kind of weird part about it is that there's ones that you've kind of like have always told me about, but that somehow certain, not even necessarily books, but just like philosophies or ways of looking at things have always made their way to me from either the podcast or from you specifically, just at the right time.
Okay.
And it would be very hard to like pinpoint why that is, other than just the fact of
That's the way the universe wanted
trusting
it.
that that's the way it's supposed to be. And yeah, I mean, like there's The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. There's The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And then most recently, you gave me The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success.
It's Deepak Chopra.
Deepak Chopra for Christmas. And somehow they just seem to make sense. And maybe that's just me trusting the fact of what's coming to me as what's meant to be. Or maybe it's just, that's the universe aligning with what you're supposed to be doing. And even, I think that, like, I was meditating prior, but I think you were the one who really put me on to using Calm. And somehow those ones, like, like when you do it every day, it's hard to be like, every single one hits me at the right time. Like, that would be kind of ridiculous. But, like, every once in a while, like, you just pick one and then
They say what needs to be said.
It just makes sense, and it's something in your head that, like, wasn't connecting that now makes more sense. Like, I have a very deep struggle with, we've been friends for a long time, like, with things that are out of my control. And, like, that goes back to the focusing on what you can't, like, focusing on the people that you can't control versus, like, what's within your power. Like, you have all these great relationships, but you're focused on building one with this person who doesn't want it back, or who doesn't align with your values because you're trying to prove something. And in that way, that kind of makes its way into my life as well, with like having more of an emotional connection and being more upset about things that are outside of your control, and then thus not doing things for the good of yourself that are within your control. And I think that was a big part of my journey specifically, which was like my therapist says, just like asking yourself, like, what is true? You know, like you've built up this whole narrative in your head. You've come up with this whole scenario that this is how it works. And like, and I don't mean like what is true in your own, like what really is true. Like what, and then like that can kind of translate to like, because a lot of times you'll say to yourself like, oh, it's not within my own power to deal with this anxiety. All these other factors from the external are causing me this. But that's just not true. What is true is that you have tools within your power, and even if they make you feel 1% better, why wouldn't you do it?
Right.
And then that kind of just goes back to how are you living in that present moment. And I think that like as somebody who overthinks and tries to sit down and meditate every day, some days like I'm there, like I'm in that present moment, and then other days I'm 6 months ahead, or I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get a job, how am I going to do this, like how am I going to deal with this person, why hasn't this happened to me yet, I feel like my life should be at a certain point. That's kind of like, I know it's useless thinking, but it can be hard to escape that.
100%. It's not.
I think we all struggle with it.
Yeah, I mean, the human brain, I believe, is
fascinating.
it just fuck yeah.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, it's in survival mode at all
Yeah.
times, you know, because whether you think about this or not, like how am I going to get a job, but really it's how am I going to get a job to live in where I'm living at, to not get kicked out, so I'm not homeless. So you're going down the rabbit hole without
Yes,
going down
exactly,
the rabbit
yeah.
hole. So you're in survival mode of making sure, but
Yeah.
to make sure that you're taken care of, but in a way that you know, right? So we know that if we don't have a job, we cannot live in an apartment or a house, and if we can't live in a house, or we're going to be homeless, right? If we were never taught those skills and we still lived in caveman, right, status, we would be like, well, what the fuck is a job?
I bring this up all the time in our.
Oh, do you?
I talk about this all the time, which is that like now that we like have the ability to, like, we're not living in a place where like a lion could come and eat us. Like, yes,
Right,
there are
yeah,
dangers,
okay.
but that like now like the scariest thing to your brain is like embarrassing yourself in front of a group of people, or like being judged for trying something new that maybe doesn't come out the way that you wanted it to.
We've set the boundary so low since then. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because if you don't eat, you don't eat that day. That's what it was, right? Like, and not for nothing. I think way back when, it was you could eat maybe once a week or a few times a week.
Yeah.
There were obesity was not a problem. Okay, like we can put it that way, right?
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it.
More like grazers, I guess. If anything, we ate and we moved on. You know what I mean? To whatever
You
it
couldn't
was.
be the best hunter and gatherer and be obese because you had to be out there hunting all the time.
You did.
And then if you were sitting at home obese not doing anything, then they would just like kick you out the tribe, I assume. Like if you can't contribute but you're eating all the food, like back then that was
Yeah.
get the fuck out.
I'm gonna go play with my sticks.
Yeah.
That's your Xbox. By
I
the way.
made the fire though. I made the fire.
I made the fire. Billy Joel didn't.
Yeah.
He did not start the fire. It was always burning.
Yeah, no.
You mentioned Michael Sanger.
Yes, Michael Singer.
Is it Singer or Sanger?
Singer.
Michael A. Singer.
Singer, like in the present.
So I have the book The Untethered Soul.
Great read.
There you
Okay.
go.
Phenomenal.
So I think, have you read that?
I'm actually listening to it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is
halfway through it.
amazing how it goes straight into. I would recommend anybody getting this, and this is the thing with me. As calm as I look right now, that is not what the fuck goes on in my head. Okay,
Yeah.
I
think everybody can relate to that in a certain way.
I have construction cones, detour signs, slingshots, and an amusement park going on at all times. Okay.
Yeah.
So, along with menus of food, which we will dive into.
Yeah,
soon.
we'll get there.
I got it. I got you.
Yeah.
I have not gotten through that book yet, even though it's a small read.
That was the first one I read.
Okay.
Yeah, when I first started.
And it's funny too because I think that if you had your copy of The Untethered Soul, that's probably what you would have given me to read. But
Yeah.
you didn't have it.
So you got the surrender
So
experiment.
you gave me the Surrender Experiment, and I think that, especially now, reading, I can't say like how it would have affected me when I read that book, but somehow him telling, it was kind of, because it's kind of like the principles of the Untethered Soul, but instead of it being like this abstract concept that can be applied to your life, he's kind of telling it alongside with his own life and how he learned to surrender and be untethered to any type of outcome. And for some reason, that was what connected with me at that time.
I love the fact that he starts off with, and I mean, like, this is huge, right? The fact that he pulls you in and makes something so relatable that nobody else has done. Okay, nobody else has ever done this.
Mm-hmm.
You know that voice that you hear all day, and it's just like, yes, yes, go on,
Yeah.
right? But that voice that we all hear is negative or positive, but you know that voice because it's your fucking voice. That's the thing that's telling you to do the thing that you don't want to do, or telling you to do the thing, even if that thing is a great thing that you should be doing, right? Yeah. Hey, that gut instinct. Hey, we might want to leave here right now. We're not supposed to be here. Something's fucking off, right?
Yeah.
Relatable as much as anything that I've ever read in my life. And I don't read much, but like that. And I don't read much because it's not relatable. I don't know why my mind does not stay in a certain area. It doesn't stay in a certain spot. But when I started to read that, I was like, holy shit. Like, it's almost as if it was so relatable. I didn't want to put the book down, but either my ADD was just like, squirrel. Yeah. Tennis balls, you know, like, and I'm gone. But I believe that since it's so relatable, talking about that voice, that if you guys were to talk about it to somebody, they'd think you're crazy, right?
So I think some people, I think you either like really resonate with it and you're like, yes, that's me. Like that voice is always there. And then there's other people who I think that their brains just operate differently.
Mm-hmm. They do. On the other hand, I think they still relate, and they're afraid to say that voice is there.
Yeah.
Because it makes them sound crazy. That's my opinion, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, I think that's the 5%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because they're here and they know it.
Yeah. When I read the first chapter of, and I assume that the first chapter of The Untethered Soul is kind of similar to what the Surrender Experiment talks about in the beginning before he starts telling kind of his story, that I was in tears immediately. I was sitting in the cruise terminal in Canada, getting ready to go on this trip, and like this, and it's not that I've like completely conquered this. I don't want to make it like that, but it was like, you want everything to go well, whether that's the trip that you go on, or the date, or this podcast, or your career, whether it's today's day of work or your whole career path as a whole. You want everything to go as you plan. And even if there's a better outcome that is waiting on the other end of it that doesn't appear to be that way right at the beginning. And this is kind of where my state of thinking comes in, which is that like if it's not the way that you drew it up, then it's wrong. And almost never do things happen the way that you drew them up. That's like 0.01% of the things.
I'm on the same boat. Yeah. It's difficult because I've been so stubborn over the years of trying to understand somebody else's side, right? And it's still a work in progress, right? It's definitely still a work in progress. I'm a lot better than what I used to be, but it's more so like, well, no, I think that it should be going this way, and I want it to be proven wrong until we move on. And that is so stubborn and so like egotistical, and going forward in that way. Just would never work, right? Like you're not gonna get anywhere.
Well,
you're not open-minded.
If we got, I always say this too, which is like if we got everything that we wanted and things went exactly the way that we wanted them to all the time, and we could just kind of create that, the first thing we do is fucking smash this microphone and be like, finally something went wrong and unpredictable. But because we try to make everything, it's kind of like the opposite of it though, which is that like if things are kind of always going, which is like unless you have, you know, a lot of resources, even people who are billionaires or who have any podcast guest at their fingertips, you know what I mean? Even they struggle with things don't go exactly the way I drew it up. And there's different problems that come with every set of things like that. But it works in the opposite way that if kind of in your life, things are never going to go the way that you exactly draw them up. But then why do we always act like today is the day that everything's going to go the way that I drew it up?
Yeah. There's always going to be tweaks, right? There's always going to be tweaks and this and that. Like the idea is great to have of whatever aspect the idea is, right? Mm-hmm. It's always great to have the idea, but an open mind to tweak things, an open mind to say, hey, maybe it'll go better this way or that way. And suggestions from the outside perspective is even better, right? It gives you a learning curve of, hey, guess what? You're not always fucking right. Hey, guess what? Your mindset is different and unique, but that doesn't mean that it takes charge over somebody else's thoughts. Mm-hmm. And you know, like you could use, this is the biggest killer, right? You could use these people around you. You're not the only fucking one. Okay.
So, I'm on a big Wayne Dyer kick right now, reading a lot of his material.
I've heard that.
He's a therapist and he was a teacher, a therapist. He was in the military for a while, but he's a big speaker and like an author. He's like written over like 40 something books. But I just finished The Power of Awakening, and in that book, one of the main things that he talks about is like what you guys are saying, like things like trying to force things to go the way that you want them to go. And it's just like, if you sit back and realize that the universe has like a plan and it's going to go the way it's going to go, and you detach from like that want, because that stems from ego. All of that stuff comes from the ego, because the ego wants things the way it wants them. It wants you to think that you're better than everybody else or that you're special. And if you just sit back and try and connect to your higher self, you realize that everybody is special and everybody is unique in their own way. And like, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what color your skin is, anything. Everybody has something to offer and is special in their own way. And everybody can be connected to that higher self if they just sit and allow things to come to them instead of trying to force things. And that, I feel like that's been like the biggest journey for me, is really because, like I said before, like I was so ego driven, and now I just try and presently practice letting that go all the time. One thing your ego hates to hear is like, call it God, call it the universe, whatever. That's inside you. Everybody has that. Everybody's connected to that divine creative source, that infinite ability. And like when you start to tell yourself that, and you change the thoughts in your head, because a lot of the work that I've done, like it's not just the meditation and the yoga, it's changing your thoughts, because that's how you really start to change your life. And I feel like those books that I've been reading they all have something in them that I've taken from them that I've used to reprogram myself. And I feel like that's the first step that a lot of people don't take, especially when you're dealing with stuff where like, why isn't this going the way I want it to be? It's because your ego is in control, and you have to put that out of the driver's seat and sit back and just connect. That's why I think meditation is so big, because when you're still and you connect to that spirit, like, because everybody has that spirit inside them. I don't care what they say. Like, you can feel so lost and so disconnected, but it's all just ego. And if you sit back and shut that voice out for just a minute or two a day, you start to get connected to that feeling. And that's when the real work starts and that progress starts to come through. That's my belief. That's how I feel about it.
I believe that when you go that direction, right? It's amazing how you could say that there is something no matter what, it's inside of you, right? But, and I don't mean a but against you, I mean but in the general sense of somebody thinking that they can do everything, that's the ego, right? I have this, I got this, we're good. But you wouldn't, if you had it, you wouldn't need the help, right? So it's like, and now you're looking more inward, but the inward is not more towards ego. It's more towards actually letting the ego go towards that spirit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're looking into that. Humbling, right? Extremely humbling.
Very humbling.
Yeah. So once you let ego down, it's almost like you explained before, a sense of bliss, right? Just kind of like a high of of like, holy shit, like, okay. And it's almost like a sense of I don't want to say anger, but negativity gets thrown out, because there's not a lot of ego that is friendly. It can seem like it's okay at times, right?
Like it's there to protect you.
Yeah.
That's the mask me and you talk about all the time. The ego wants to trick you into being, I'm just here to help you, bud.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to guide you.
Yeah.
You need to have this thing so I can protect you, but you don't need that. It's that ego's attachment to possessions and stuff like that.
And it's like, once you turn to that spirit, now in my eyes, I see that as God, right?
Okay.
But I believe that, right? I 100% what you said is, I believe that. And once you go towards that, ego can be broken so quickly. And when somebody says, oh, he's got a broken ego, there's one of two things that can happen. Either it's accepted and you're like, I needed that, or it's doubled. The ego comes up, and what would an ego say? Didn't break my ego. All right, that's what an ego would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
fine.
I didn't need that anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
On to the next, right? And once that work starts actually getting, once you start to indulge in that work, right? That's when it's just like, do I really need this thing around? And then there's certain ways. Now there are certain times where you know that you can pull ego out and be like, hey, I need it here. I need it here. But you got to go back in my pocket after this. Okay, you learn how to use certain things, right? It's still hard to do, though. It's still, and
absolutely.
Like, I certainly don't know how to do it. Maybe when I'm in competition, like I still play football every Sunday. That's when I know I can pull it out. Dude, as soon as I'm back in my car, that thing's gone.
Yeah.
It's, you know what I mean? I don't think that I voluntarily did that, though. I think it's involuntary because of work that I've put in on myself. So knowing that, hey, you can't walk around like this all the time. Because if you do, like, fuck the 5%. What about the 95% that look at you? They're going to be like, you really act like that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, shit, like...
That's what, I thought that was just on the football field.
Well, yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, exactly.
That does not...
It's an ugly...
Does not look good on you.
No, it's an ugly...
When you're in the line at the grocery store, like...
Checking out with your Oreos.
Yeah.
You spoke about uniqueness, okay?
Yeah.
And I like the name of the podcast. Who thought we'd be here?
Thank you, man.
Right?
I appreciate that.
It's outside the box. It's a question. It's a statement. It's a story. Why that name?
We had no clue what we were gonna call it when we sat down for that first episode, when we were just like, I had just quit my job, he was about to leave his, both of us were kind of just like, let's give this a shot and see what happens. And I like came up with a bunch of things, but he said it, and it just, as we progressed through that first episode and we thought about doing the second episode, it just became something that was like, this is it, right? Like, who thought we'd be here doing this podcast? Because I know nobody did. Yeah. Nobody thought that we'd be sitting here. And then we thought of all of the things that can play off of that.
Yeah. Like I think it has to do with, it definitely comes from just the fact that me and you had
No
a complete
relationship a couple
fallout
years
in terms
ago.
of friendship, and that like we genuinely like, and like I said, I don't know about you, but like I think we both definitely thought that like there's no way that like we'll be friends again, let alone be on our own podcast together and encouraging each other and lifting each other up and giving each other like mental health tips.
Yeah.
You know, like that's certainly not, but then we kind of wanted it to apply to anybody, which is that I think it comes from that comfort zone thing, which is that everybody, you know, you it's very easy to fall into that trap of I'm going to continue doing this thing that isn't good for me because it's comfortable and I don't know anything else. And we wanted other people to be able to look at it and say, like, who thought that you'd be here? You know, like, not necessarily even listening to the podcast, but like, who thought you'd be here sitting down and meditating? Or who thought you'd be here and, you know, you're 2 days sober? Or who thought you'd be here after, you know, all the shit you've been through? You know, it can apply to other people's relationships, you know?
Right.
Do you think that, like, when me and you sat down at that diner for the first time, that, like,
Yankee Clipper?
we'd be here doing a crossover episode of a podcast?
No.
No, of course
they
not.
didn't.
But that's what's beautiful about it.
Yeah, it didn't even cross my mind.
He's
Right.
like, I'll never have this dude on.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
maniac.
I feel like we were sitting there at the diner and like we're sitting there 3 hours later, right?
Yeah.
3 hours later, and I'm sitting there. I was like, "Would this guy shut the fuck up?"
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Exactly,
no,
right? Yeah. No, I mean,
no, we were there for a while though.
Yeah.
Coming up with different ideas, different.
and I think like it was kind of a setup of we were talking about. It started with like I was gonna do like video,
Yeah,
and probably 1% of our conversation was about that.
we talked about everything.
We talked about almost everything but that, you know.
What everybody like, what we both went through, what we were both working on, what we went into it. What if you guys don't mind me asking, what was a fallout that was heavy that made you think that you couldn't be here, and how was it resolved?
Well, I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So
It was your fault, he says. No.
well,
You burned me with that cigarette
yeah.
15 years ago.
So the way that I saw it is, and now I can look back on it and I can reflect and I can be like, I take a lot of blame for it. I know that we both had our sharing. We lived together, and I think living together, you spend enough time around each other, plus we work together, it's easy to butt heads. I was also in that point where I was like freshly into my cocaine addiction, you know, like I'm gonna have people over and we're gonna do blow all night, like plus
Right.
I was drinking, and he was at a point where you were just getting out of a relationship, right? And you were like
When I had
you were out of one and then into the next one.
I dated 2 people during the course that we lived together.
Yeah, and I think that my lifestyle with what you were going through started to bump heads, and then I was just I had no consideration, I'd say. I kind of just was like, I was in my own little bubble doing what I wanted to do, and I didn't really take into account how it was affecting anybody other than me. And I think he probably grew tired of that, and like it was time to move on. As far as afterwards, like coming back together, like I'm the type of person where like I used to avoid conflict at all costs. Like I don't, JP's out of the house, he's not living here anymore, he's not talking to me. Oh well, I'm gonna just keep doing my thing, and like it's one less person I gotta get a Christmas gift for, you know? Like I wouldn't have made
No,
the
this is
steps
this
to,
is
like,
great
You're
because it's
being
a great
very honest
mindset
right now,
that
yeah.
people.
I wouldn't have made the steps to try and mend the relationship until I had fallen into my own trap, you know? Like it was more or less like right around when I started meditating and stuff that I started to realize like, holy fuck, look at what you've done to yourself and to everyone around you. And then I just walked into River Girl one day and he was there, and JP came outside and gave me a very honest apology. And I was like, I definitely owe you one. I just don't know where it's coming from right now, but I am making the steps to like change my life, and I see how I've negatively affected you and our relationship in the past. And I think that was when we started to like open back up to each other. It took a little bit, like
Yeah, it
you had
didn't
to
happen immediately.
yeah, we hung out a few times, like just casual bullshit, like not really getting to the source of things. But then again, from the podcast, Who Thought We'd Be Here, we sat down that day when we recorded that first episode, and I think that was the most meaningful conversation that me and you have probably ever had, where we were like open about things and like actually that was the beginning of like the problem really being dissolved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so for sure. Once we realized, like, yeah, and we talked about that in.
That's not what JP said.
But that was a big part that came up in when I interviewed you, which was that like at some point I think we realized that like it wasn't a competition of whatever, and like I mean for me as it was looking back on it, it was I know that I took a lot of. Because like I said, I mean, you look at things that are outside of your control, and instead of focusing on yourself, you turn towards and I was, like my journey of trying to be better was a lot more of a slow rise. And I felt like it started with when I got out of that relationship and the day before, like I remember that very clearly. There was a snowstorm.
Yeah.
We went out at 10 o'clock in the morning and we bought weed. We bought, I think, 2 racks of beer.
Yep.
And an 8-ball. Pretty good day, but it's 10 o'clock in the morning, so we were preparing.
Where were the other, like, pool balls? Just the 8-ball, huh?
Yeah, right? Huh. And
go figure.
And I knew the next day that me and my girlfriend at the time, that I didn't want to break up, but that's what was going to happen. And I said, like, I'm going to go all out today. And like, since then I haven't touched that stuff. But that was probably a big point where for me, like, cause I realized what it did to me. And then I continued to see not only the way that it affected you, but the way that it affected how you treated me and other people who were close to you. And I wanted to believe for like a long time that we were, when we were still friends, that like that wasn't you. But then eventually, it turned into like, it was at the point where like, you were making decisions in your relationships that were affecting mine because you were my best friend. So it was like, if you're friends with him, how can you be, how can you say that you don't do that kind of stuff? How do you not go out there and do whatever with other girls? Or how do you go out there, like your friend is a cokehead, like how are you not one? Or, like he treats other people like that sometimes like shit. Like obviously eventually one day you're going to do that to me. And I even saw it, like it was very tough to see that like it was even hard when like you weren't taking very good care of Noah. And I don't know like what the factor was in that, but that was a big part of it for me, that I just said like, all right, at this point, like I have to separate this relationship because everything else in my life is starting to suffer because of it. But I also have to take responsibility for the fact of like, and we talked about it that day, which was I felt like because I was making even those small changes, I looked at it like I was better than you. And I looked at it like he doesn't deserve to be friends with me anymore. And obviously with where we're at now and things worked out, like, but like obviously I don't know if that was the best way to handle it as your friend. And we did have honest conversations, but obviously like I can't be honest with you. I wasn't honest with you then like I am now. And a big part of that conversation was like, I don't know what people have said to you or what.
I was so oblivious that he apologized for talking shit about me behind my back, and I was like, you did what? Because I was just so far gone. Like, I had no clue. I was just so in my own world.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, like, prove to everybody that I had made, like, the right choice, and that I was the better person, and that I walked away because, for lack of a better word, you were a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. And I talked bad on your name to anybody who would listen, you know? And that wasn't because I wanted people to, like, know that. It was because I wanted to prove to myself that I'm doing better. Mm-hmm. Or that you know, I may still do this or still do that, but, like, I'm not that. And I wanted to make it clear to everybody that I wasn't that. And I mean, it haunted me, you know what I mean? And then, like, obviously, then we didn't see each other in person for a long time.
It was probably about a year and a half, 2 years.
At least. And being able to, that I think was a big part of proving to myself that honesty is the best policy, because I easily could have, you know, a part of me thought that, like, because, like, I don't know you as the person that you are now. A part of me thought that, like, you would get pissed that, like, really, bro? Like, we've been friends since we were how long? And, like, we may disagree now, but you were out there, like, talking shit. But, like, kudos to you, because, like, you took it on the chin and you were honest with yourself. And I hope that moment helped you be honest with yourself, too.
Yeah, 100%.
But I think that a big part of it for me, going back to what I said in the beginning, was, like, not taking responsibility for, like, you obviously weren't making those decisions because of me. Mm-hmm. And it would be, like, rather, like, conceited of me to think that because I'm making small changes in my life, thus that means that you'll do that automatically too, and that'll just happen. And I mean, ever since, like, that happened, like, really, like, and we've even had times we've disagreed, but, like, we're able to be honest with each other now. And it's not a matter of, like I said, I mean, going back to what I said in the beginning, which is that, like, it's not a competition for, like, who can get more attention from other people, or who can, you know, in a lot of ways, I think for a long amount of time we were in competition with who could be a worse person. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, like, there's not very many other ways to put it.
Yeah, I mean, my struggle with cocaine addiction was very different than yours. Like, mine was very quick.
Mine was dragged out over 5 years. You know, like,
mine was probably like a year.
Yeah, I started off slow, and then it's just like, somebody said to me one time when I was doing blow, you should never do, and this was somebody that I looked at like, that's a cokehead. What I'm doing is just casual. Yeah. And he's like, if you're doing blow and you're not even drinking yet, like, you have a problem. And I was like, oh shit. And, like, that's when I, like, started to really realize, I was like, I gotta fucking make some changes. Mm-hmm. And it's such a thing when you're stuck in that addictive state that, like, all right, like, I went a couple hours, like, it's been like a day, like, I'm good. I can just do, like, this one bump real quick, and, like, it'll be fine. And it's not. It's just, you're using it as a crutch, like, oh, I'm only doing, like, a couple bumps today. Like, no, you're still addicted, bro. Like,
yeah, my problem was that I was, like, super, and that's why a lot of people think that I didn't even notice they liked it, but, like, anybody who worked with me in those first 2 years at River Grove will tell you that I was an angry motherfucker. And it was because it was messing with my brain. And then on top of that, like, normally when people do stuff like that, it's a very social thing. You're, like, inviting this person in on this person in on, like, nobody knew I had it. So I was just, like, doing a whole baggie to myself, and then, like, trying to explain away why I was being a piece of shit that, like, I knew what it was. Like, I was directly influencing my brain, and I already, like, struggled with anger, struggled with overthinking, and that was, like, taking me to a whole nother place. And, like, some people like, not that I encourage anybody to do it, but like some people, like, they can do it like it's a treat,
Yeah.
you know, and that's fine. Like, I guess, like, you know, whatever helps you. I don't know. Like, I'm definitely not gonna say that it's good for anybody, but I'm also gonna say that, like, some people just don't have that addictive personality. But like, I think all three of us can probably be like, ooh, yeah, like, you know, that's,
I do.
yeah,
I
like,
have an addictive personality.
yeah.
I've never tried that. I was always afraid of what it would do to my body, not in long term, but in short term. Like I already know that as a kid, I had epileptic. Go ahead.
epileptic.
Epileptic.
There you go, bud.
Yay! Seizures as a young child. So, and then I was in a club one time, and actually the lights got to me, and I actually started to have a seizure, and I stopped it before it happened. So, I felt one side of me completely go like that, and my whole
Strokes.
side just started going, and I forced my head down, and it started to lighten up. Like my body started to loosen up again, and then I noticed that even if it caught the side of my eye, my body involuntarily started going like this, and it started tightening up again. I was like, oh shit. So I like took my head and I forced it down.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't do blow, bro.
Yeah. Good thing, huh?
Good thing we didn't. Yeah, good thing we didn't meet like
So
6 years ago. I would have been like,
and I actually went blind in one of my eyes.
Oh, damn.
All I saw was brown, and it wasn't like a blurry brown. I could see
you
figures.
browned out, bro?
I browned out.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's been proven.
So all I saw was brown, and then I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, what was that?
Yeah.
And I've been in rooms where everybody's doing blow, and then they would ask me, hey, do you want to try it? I'm like, fuck no. Like, I already know, like, there's some shit going on. Like, there were times when I smoked weed that I would get sick. So I'm like, no. Like, I know if I can't handle that.
We're very lucky that, like, we didn't. I don't know about you, but, like, I never caught some stuff that, like, you
See,
know,
that's like when I was
Huge
listening
fear.
to Chris Herron on Rich Roll like last or 2 weeks ago. So it's one thing that he says that really resonated with me, and it's like he had just gotten into Boston College, and he had he'd come home one night and people were like, you want to do blow? And it was right after, what's his face, who got drafted?
Len Bias.
Len Bias had died from doing it one time, and he was just like, I put the fact that I could die, I was just like, I'd rather take a chance on having fun and doing this drug than dying, you know? Like,
Yeah, man. That's like, I mean, I'm very grateful that it didn't get to that point where, like, something else was in there. Or, like, you know, but I also had, you know, I think, and you can probably attest to this too, like, we had some nights where, like, you're watching the sun come up and your heart is not slowing down.
yeah.
And, like, you know, you think about, like, you know, we're big into breathing now. Like, I easily went, like, a whole year without breathing through my nose at all.
100%, because you couldn't. Like,
Yeah.
it was impossible. I would
Yeah.
wake up in the morning and I would take a shower, and the first thing I would do is blow my nose in the shower and just watch blood come out.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, that cannot be good for anybody.
No.
And, like, at one point toward the end, I started realizing, I was like, there's only so much blood in your body.
Yeah.
It's coming out of your nose every morning.
This isn't how it's supposed to, like...
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I just feel very, like, there was a point in time where I was dating somebody and it was a part of their life, and I came home one day and it was 3:00 in the afternoon and there was, like, a rock on the table. And it was also one of those things where, like, I should have known it then, but, like, I would like panic. I knew what it was doing to my body. I was freaking out. Like, it's not like I grew up wanting to do cocaine and, like, idolized it. Like, I knew what I was doing, but I did it because I wanted to fit in and be cool. And it was one of those things that just breathe, you're fine. Like, no, like, I wasn't fine. I never at any point was fine.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, I don't want shame anybody for doing it, because like obviously like I've been down that very dark road myself, and it's just, I'm not gonna act like it's the easiest thing to get clean
Oh.
and to stop, but just think about, like, you only get one of these bodies. And
One meat suit.
yeah. In some way we're all, like, there's still in some way, nobody can entirely, unless you're like the guy who wants to live to be the longest man alive, like, we're all in some way, whether it's food or it's weed or it's alcohol in certain amounts, like, we're all kind of destroying our bodies in some type of way. And I also don't want to make it like there's like better ways to do that. But as someone who's been down that road, and I'm sure you would say the same thing as well, it's just like, that's not the answer.
Yeah.
It's not like save anything. And like, I used to think that I needed it to deal with people.
Just go to therapy, man. Because that's the one thing that I always got from, like, the only time I would have an open, honest conversation with somebody was when we were in the bathroom together at 2:30 in the morning doing coke.
Yeah.
Like, if I had just gone to therapy, like, wouldn't have needed that,
Yeah, that's one of the hardest parts about it, though, is like the social aspect of it. And like I said, I had a dark relationship with it that I was like, I wanted to keep it all to myself, because I was, not only was I ashamed of it, but I was like, I spent good money on this. Like, why would I share this with anyone? But it's hard to, yeah, it's like, I mean, like, some of the probably best conversations that me and you ever had were sitting at that table in the living room, like, absolutely geeked out of our minds.
We had a black table that was never black after like the first year we had it.
Yeah,
it was never fully cleaned, ever.
It was just like off black, we'll call it.
Yeah.
I know what happens here.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I think to a certain extent, like, we took pride in being those people at that moment.
Yeah, I'm mad social because I'm fucking high as balls on cocaine.
or
like,
like-
watch how quick I'll make your fucking drink behind the bar right now.
Yeah.
There was I don't think I shared this story with too many people. I don't think my fan base knows this at all. So yours gets a gets a free one
An
here.
Ikonical exclusive right here.
Yeah. There at one point when I did smoke a lot, right, and the people that I was smoking with always had to wait for these people to, we have to smoke first, we have to do this first, we have to do that first, and and to me, I'm a different personality of like, hey, I just want to do this, get this done, and if we're gonna smoke, we're gonna go smoke while everybody's chilled out, okay? If we're gonna watch a movie, I don't want to go anywhere after I'm smoking, okay? Like, I can't function like that usually I'm down and out. But after a while, I started to realize that I was like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like, I don't want to smoke anymore. But I stopped one day and I was like, okay, I'm done. And I tried it cold turkey, and my body said, the fuck you're doing that? Like, that's not happening. My body went through withdrawal for about 3 days, and I had to be next to a toilet. Like, you know what I mean? And I was just like, what the fuck is happening right now, right? So, and I noticed that I had mood swings, some serious mood swings. Like, I didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want, like, leave me the fuck alone. And from all the other stories that I've heard, that's not what I've heard. I've heard other things that I could just stop when I want to. And I'm like, why the fuck can't I? How come I can't do that? So I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on here, right? And then the craving obviously comes up even more, because now I stopped for 4 or 5 days, and then I'll say relapsed, right? Went back into it, I guess.
It's funny to, I mean, we because like, you're how many days into not smoking?
I'm 3 weeks, but I actually just went through the exact. I had no issues quitting alcohol. I had no issues quitting cocaine. I stopped smoking, and day 2, I woke up every hour on the hour that night, freezing cold, but sweating, shaking, like and I was the moody as fuck too, like just depressed, didn't want to be bothered by anybody. Like
I had like a few days, and it was not even like, it was probably a week or 10 days after I had stopped, and I had the most crippling depression I've ever had. Like, and I couldn't point to anything but that.
Let me tell you something. There were people that were making fun of me. These are the people that I'm supposed to be cool with, okay? And I said, dude, I don't know if what we're smoking is what we're smoking. Like, there's got to be something else in this or something like that, because from what everybody else tells me, it's not like this, and I am feeling this way. And I was called, like, they were joking around, but I didn't need that at that point. I didn't need you to joke around with me. I needed you to be like, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, good for you. Or
You know
good
what I
for
mean?
you. Like, yeah.
So, but they didn't. They're like, yo, you really act like a crackhead right now, and you're really blah 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 blah, and this and that, and they were laughing at me.
Killing our buzz.
And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, what the fuck? What am I supposed to do now? Like, who am I supposed to turn to now? Because if I turn to somebody that doesn't understand what's going on, now they're going to think that I need rehab, and that's not something that I thought that I actually needed. I thought that I could get out of this without that, which I did, but I'm still having an issue. Okay. This is when I knew I had an issue. Okay. And I didn't go to rehab or anything like that. I didn't need to, but this is when I knew that it was bigger than I thought it was. I went to one of the parking lots that we used to smoke, waiting for anybody to come through there that would smoke. I walked in the back of South Davies in Beacon, looking for anybody that would sell me something. Okay? Not anything, but looking for weed, right? You don't do that with weed.
Yeah.
You don't fucking do that with weed. There's something else in there. Now, after I said that, then I got laughed at even more. Okay. These are not the people I should be hanging out with. Okay, that's when I knew that. I was like, okay, cool. So when I started to be like, okay, I need to stop doing X, Y, and Z. And it took a while, because I even remember when I needed rides to work, I wouldn't talk to my father like in the morning. It would be like no words, right? And it's just because I didn't want to be bothered, I didn't want to be talked to, I didn't want to be anything, right? And God bless him, because he has the patience of, of a saint, right? So, I mean, and circle around to now, right? Like, wake up in the morning and have a conversation with anybody, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah,
So that's how I know that
so
it was
true.
huh?
It's so true.
Yeah, like, that's how you know that it was that shit, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna say this out loud, and I don't care. Honestly, I really don't give a shit how anybody feels about
Speak
this.
your truth, bro, please.
Yeah. The one person that I was, and he was the one that called me, dude, you're a crackhead. He experimented on so many other drugs. He ain't coming back. He's not coming back. He's not dead, but his mind is, he's an angel here to save everybody. He is stuck in, he's done so many shrooms, he's done acid, he's done, you name it, right? And then the other one has no motivation to do anything, right?
Yeah.
Everything else is the entire world's problem.
And look at like how much you've accomplished.
And I still want to accomplish more.
Yeah, exactly.
And the weird thing is, while I'm doing that, I stepped away, and I was kind of looked upon as, I mean, I would say from my aspect, because I don't want to say what they're thinking, as the bad guy. You stepped away from us, but in certain times I have heard from the other side be like, I understand why you didn't. Cool. I'm glad that you understand that. Right. But it's like beating a dead horse and trying to drill inside somebody's head. You guys really don't understand it because you're so far in that you don't see what the fuck it's doing to you. Because if I ask you to go out, well, I don't have any money. Why don't you have money? Because you don't have a job. Why don't you have a job? Because you can't pass a fucking drug test. Yeah. Even when you give these people opportunities for a high-paying job, well, no, that means I got to stop smoking weed. Okay, that's a problem. That's a problem that you can't pass a drug test in my eyes, right? Like, but regardless, Then you have somebody else. You have that person is also being made fun of now. The one that's not coming back. He's not coming back because he doesn't have the mindset to do it. And it's sad because if I mention his name, everybody puts their head down. Because you know where the mindset that he's at is, right? And yeah, I've had some pokes and jokes at him once or twice, but then it's just like, okay, it's, I think we've all done that about stupid stuff, right? And then it's just like, okay, well, it's not a continuous laughing matter.
Well, you think that might make you feel a little better about it,
Right.
about the situation.
Well, then and now I've let go of, there's a whole group chat I had to block out because I actually stood up for him saying, hey, you guys don't want him in your life and you can't stand him because he puts this crazy conspiracy shit up all the time. But on the same end, you're bringing it up even though he's blocked out of, but you don't understand. He's coming at us and he's telling us this stuff and you should watch out. Yeah, because he's fucked in the head and you guys don't have any compassion for that. Mm-hmm. So you make a mockery out of him in the chat.
Or, it's just one of those scenarios where no matter where you're at in life, like if you can look at somebody else who's doing worse, you can make excuses for the things that you're doing that are harming you or harming others. Well, at least I'm not that guy.
That's possible too. And the weird thing is, once I was outspoken about that, right? Oh, you think you're better than us? Nope. I don't think I'm better than you. But I will tell you right now, I don't need you motherfuckers in my life. Mm-hmm. I said I will block all of you. Mm-hmm. Made it very known, very clear. Started getting text messages back. Peace. All right. Because I'm not coming back. Like, I set my boundaries. My boundaries are now here. You just don't give a fuck. Cool. Blocked everybody. Now you get messages in your Instagram. Why are you bothering me? Mm-hmm. I set my boundaries very clear. People blowing up the Instagram, not even in my messages now. Now in my comments. Now I know who you are. We're done here. Okay? You ignore that. You let it go. What was presented to me as what you claimed is false on who you were has just showed up to be real. Has given me more confirmation now to leave those kind of people behind. It sucks, though, because those are people you know for 20 years. Mm-hmm. You realize that you've had 20-year acquaintances, not 20-year friends. That's the hardest thing to come about with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes, and I don't know, because you never really do know, like, what can happen, and, some people change eventually. Yeah. But you can't make excuses for where your life is going and where things, because you're attached to certain other people.
Yeah.
And being able to, and I think that maybe like you'd be able to do it better now than I would have years ago. But I think that was part of like when I stopped doing hard drugs, mm-hmm. It was, well, now I can't be around anybody who does it. Like zero tolerance, because like I became a piece of shit on that. So then thus like anybody else who does it is a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. And it's not like you're doing it for your own good. You're not doing it like to, and I think that some people immediately that's the way that people go, which is that like, you're better than us? Oh, okay. All right, bro. Like, yeah. Have a nice life.
How long have you been sober for?
2016. Every now and again, I'll take a hit of something. Nothing crazy.
So that's crazy. The year you got sober was the same year you started the podcast?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, but it's not. That's yeah.
Same.
But you know what the thing is though. What I noticed, and it was drinking. Drinking was my thing.
Yeah.
Or drinking was my thing, like heavily. There was no off button.
Drinking is something that I very much struggled with, and I don't ever put enough emphasis on it because I was a bartender, and I think it was so socially accepted for me to be, like, there's no reason for anybody to be drinking a bottle of a spirit in a night. Like, that's an actual problem that I had, that I still don't address all the time. I just don't drink. I stay away from it because drinking is what leads me to doing other things, and that I feel is a bigger issue. But I know that that's got to be something that is extremely hard to deal with, especially because it's so socially accepted.
Well, no,
It's
and
not illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, especially in...
Imagine if they found alcohol today. There's no way they'd make it legal.
Oh, you're saying if it like...
Like if somebody just like mixed
Miller
up.
Lite.
Yeah. No way. No shot.
No, well, in a lot of ways, it's amazing that it's kind of not more regulated.
I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, you're
and
good.
that I just cut you off.
ADHD much?
Yeah,
No. I trust me, that's what the podcast is, right? Like we cut each other off, but I was gonna bring you back. Trust me, that's the whole point. Like we know how to
Damn
bring each
good
other
at it,
back.
yeah.
But I mean, you know what the thing is, I didn't have the off button. I drank to get drunk. There was no 2 or 3. There was 8 or 9 or 10. That's what it was. And I remember, at times I would go inside of I would park my car inside the parking lot. By the time I got to the bar, my drink was on the corner of the bar ready for me.
Yeah.
That's how I'll say, quote unquote, good I had it, right? That's not having it good at all. That's called having a problem.
Yeah, but I think that's like what we...
Yeah.
we all looked at it like that was, you know what I mean? Like especially when, you know, you work where we work and you're out and about and you're going to all these different places. It was like, you know, like I could like bring a girl to the rail and get treated like a king. And that's why I got laid that night.
Right.
You know, like that, you know, you use that, or like I remember very clearly that there was a girl who I eventually dated, who I brought her over to my house for the first time, and I easily could have like gone into my room and like taken a couple nugs of weed out and brought her back out. But no, I grabbed like the fucking half-pound bag and brought it out there. Do you sell drugs? No, I just love weed. At the time, I was selling drugs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, but and you think that when you don't have...
Snoop Dogg's on his way over.
Yeah, dude, but like I literally had a fucking bag of weed the size of that laptop. Like, and you think that when you don't have that kind of confidence and belief in yourself of this is who I am, you lean into things like that give you an identity, or a false sense of identity is what I really should say.
Yeah.
That I am this guy. Like, I'm the guy who can smoke weed and all day long and be perfect at my job. In fact, maybe be better at my job. Or I'm the guy who can drink all night and then drive home and be fine. Yeah. Like, as fucked up as that sounds, like I've had that thought in my head. I think we all have. You know?
Yeah, 100%.
You know, like, and it leads to this feeling of being invincible.
You know what's crazy to what you said about having the drink ready for you on the bar? That's how accepted alcoholism is. Because I was the good bartender, because if I saw you walking in, I would have your drink ready, because I know everybody's drink. And I would always have everything ready for the person, because if I caught a glimpse of you out of the corner of my eye while I'm doing 3 things, but I still had your drink ready on the bar, it was like, he's so good at this. I'm like, no, you're just an alcoholic, and I know it.
But on the same end, you know, and you know what? This is a great interaction.
That's how you get that identity.
Yeah.
This is a great interaction because, okay, and you want to know what I'm thinking as a customer right off the bat? He's good at his fucking job.
Yeah.
This is why I come here. I feel wanted here.
Yeah.
Into that. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy how alcoholics encourage alcoholics?
Yeah. It is
Like,
what it is.
Yeah, to be like, even if it's just like you're the type of person who like, I see you like tingling your can that like, or I hear you put it down on the bar,
and it's how light it is.
I hear that it's empty, and I'm already reaching in the cooler by the time you've already came back to like ask me. You know, and
Nobody ever puts a fucking water on the bar for me.
Sons of bitches.
Yeah, I mean, but that is, I think, what we're talking about here, which is that like now we've kind of, and I still struggle with it, but like when you're able to form your identity around something that isn't what other people think, because what we just said, like that is entirely devoted 100% around like other people see this, therefore I am good at this, therefore I am labeled as this. I'm the good bartender, or I'm the guy. however you want to interpret the guy. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's true though. That's and there's so many. It sucks to. I'll go down this rabbit hole. It sucks to kind of go down this way, but there's so many different personalities of everybody, right? And you don't know what personality you're gonna get with an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
You can get the angry. You can get the angry to a happy. You can get the happy to an angry. You can. There's so many different. You know. You can get the depressed. You can get the depressed to an extremely joyful. You can. I mean, there's so many different angles.
Yeah.
And it's weird to have a sense of camaraderie with somebody when you're drinking and you don't even fucking know them on the side. But all you know is that both of you have the same thing in common. You're about to get fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
You're about to be shit-faced. You're going to be on the same planet. You're about to be, you know what I mean? And you don't know what this person is going to be like and that person is going to be like. And then if they go a different direction than what you thought their emotional state was going to go, yeah, how much you drink affects your judgment upon whether or not you accept them in that moment or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
crazy to think that deep, but
yeah. I mean, I'm not completely sober from drinking, but I drink a fair amount less, and I kind of make it a point that when I go out to places sometimes, to just prove to myself, to like that, like, you can sit here for 4 hours and drink water. Nobody is gonna make you have one.
yeah,
You know, nobody's gonna, you know, no matter what other people say or things like that. And like, you've been sober for a little while now, and like the whole time I've met you, you've been sober.
yeah,
And like, but we like to, when we go out and we go eat at places, we sit at the bar, and
your finest well water, please.
yeah, exactly, yeah. That joke still hits, right?
It does for some odd reason. It's always a bartender's like, what?
But there is we've gone to a lot of places. There's always somebody who's kind of like,
Yeah,
oh.
You're taking up a seat and you're not even gonna drink?
Yeah, exactly. But well, he's gonna eat his fucking body weight in food, but like,
Yeah.
you know.
fuck yeah, I am.
But I think that even though, like all of the science and all of the evidence points towards that it's not a good thing, and that like I said, I still drink like every once in a while. But when you have that, whether it's somebody who's sitting at the bar or it's the bartender who knows your drink, or it's the bartender who drinks with you, like me and you were that for a very long time. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I know the facts about this, but if I talk to enough people who agree with me that like, let's get fucked up or whatever, that like, then that gives you enough within yourself that like, okay, like, not that you're necessarily doing the right thing, but like what I'm doing is okay.
Yeah, I can. You know, it's. Have you guys ever felt like it doesn't feel okay to do the right thing when you're trying to quit something that's been in your comfort zone for so long?
100%.
Absolutely.
I went through that so much at the beginning of this. Like when I first stopped drinking, like I was just like, am I doing the right? Because when you start to change who you are and the things about you, things around you, they seem like they're falling apart. In reality, you're just shifting into being where you're supposed to be. But like for me, I was like, I have no more social life. I have no more friends, because everything was so based around drinking. Like I was like, I don't even like my job anymore because like I'm just bartending and I gotta watch people get drunk. Like in reality, that was something that I engraved in my own head, and like I still love working in a restaurant. It's here nor there if people drink, if I'm not drinking. I can bartend all day and fucking be a great time without having a sip of alcohol. But like when you first start doing it, it's such a struggle because it's so accepted that like it's hard to feel like you're doing the right thing, because everybody's just like, "What? Oh, you're stopping? Okay." Like nobody ever thinks it's like I don't think anybody that, maybe like a couple people when I stopped drinking were like, he's definitely doing the right thing for himself. I think a lot of people just tend to be like, we'll see how long this lasts.
Mm-hmm.
That's the common.
Or when something like we'll see if you can keep that up when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Like things are good right now, but like let's see you keep that up when shit goes south.
Yeah, and it's funny too because you can have a good friend that still says that.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
it's not that they're a
Yeah.
bad person for saying that, because sometimes, and you know, I have been on both ends of the fence with this, right? Sometimes somebody has dragged me to the lake so many times and I never drank the water, right? So that's when that comes out. Well, he's doing good now. We'll see if, you know, when stuff goes wrong, if he'll continue on his path, because I can't help him anymore.
Yeah.
He's got to do it.
That was a very eye-opening thing for me, like, because that was 3 weeks ago was probably the first time that I went through a real hardship, like ending that relationship that I was in. Like, you said it to me when we hung out the next day. You're like, I'm proud of you, because there was a part of me that thought, shit just hit the fan for him. He's gonna come home, and I hope he doesn't make that phone call.
Picking you up and rubbing your nose, like I mean, you don't know. It's not anything that you hope for, but like up till that point, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know how you're gonna deal with it. But then like you know you say that like eventually like you get in the habit of making those decisions that are better for you. And like I had the same thing that, you know, like and I don't work in a restaurant anymore, but like soon enough I may be forced to go back because that's where my experience lies, and it's hard to get a job these days. But that's besides the point of that. Like when I stopped smoking weed, you think that like so many of my like good solid friendships are based upon that.
Yeah.
They were based on like that was the social thing that we did together. But then I realized, and like I said, I'm not gonna sit here and say that like because like I still love weed even though I haven't smoked in over a month, like that I'm done for good. But I had to cultivate like this new relationship with it, and I thought that everybody who I was close friends with, who like that was what we did together, that relationship would like fall apart.
Yeah.
Because now we don't have this thing in common, and you think that I think that I'm better than you, but it's like this is just something that I have to do. Like this is something that like I realized that I had this huge crutch. I almost said crush right there. Like I had this huge crush on weed.
Yeah, I was like, damn, okay, you and Mary?
Oh, she fine over there. That's sour diesel. She look
Smoking.
good. Yeah. But I had this that like that was the one thing I was clinging to, and that it was such a part of my personality and such a part of my identity that I couldn't be my true self without it, and that I couldn't like deal with anxiety or deal with who I was without it. And I feel like I smoked for so long that I still haven't necessarily grasped the benefits, like the long-term benefits of it. Because when you do something for, I mean, I've been smoking for 15 years or more than that, honestly, but basically on a daily basis for 10, your body doesn't just go away.
Yeah.
You know, and you start, but your mind process starts to think differently, and you don't have this, like, I mean, you said about like that about doing like people who wanted to smoke before they did anything. That was us.
Yeah, we wouldn't
Every
even
single time.
podcast
Yeah, we
without
couldn't
being
even
high.
do it without that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like not only this crutch of like this is how we have fun, but it was this crutch of like if I do something stupid, I can just be like, oh, I was high.
Yeah.
And then eventually that just becomes who you are, because like you don't even have to say it. People know that you're high. And if you say something stupid sitting at the bar, they just kind of like, oh yeah, he's smacked right now.
Yeah. I want to jump into one other thing, and I have a good closing question for you guys. Since chilling out on, smoking weed, how are those fucking dreams, gentlemen?
Oh my god. Because me and him are both big on the whoop, like I get like all of that data every morning when I sleep. For 3 days in a row, I've gotten 100% of my sleep. And for over a week, I've gotten over 90% of my sleep. And I think I'm up 35 to 40% on average a night. My REM cycle sleep. So, like, I'm dreaming. I dream right before I wake up. When I wake up in the morning, it's always, like, right out of a dream. And I normally get up around 12 o'clock to go to the bathroom, and that's right out of a dream. But they're fucking vivid, bro. Like, and they feel like... Oh, I've heard of people talking about, like, yeah, when you sleep, you're, like, in another dimension. Like, that shit's fucking real now. Like, it feels like it.
So, a tip. Have you ever had the dream and then all of a sudden during the day you forgot the dream? Even though it's vivid and you're like, shit, what the fuck did I dream about last night? I know I had a crazy dream, right? But I don't remember what it was. But you knew it was long. You knew it was extremely... there are characteristics about it. You remember all the details, but you don't remember the dream actually. You just remember that there were characteristics and details and vivid images, right? Keep your hand away from your head. Put it under the pillow, okay? This is the best way that I can describe it, and it works. I'm telling you, from my perspective, I've tried this, and it seems to work, okay? You remember going into Spencer's back in the day? Okay, and Spencer's used to have that ball with the electricity.
Yeah.
And you put your hand on it, right? And then your fingers would, go to it. Or if you just put like one, all the electricity would go to one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's almost like picture the globe as your head, okay? And you put your fingers on it. And I'm not saying this is what it is, but this is the best way to be described as. It's almost like the dream's gonna get sucked out into your hand and you don't remember it.
Oh, man, I sleep with my, like, one hand like this, like, every fucking night.
Slip it under.
Okay.
Slip it under. And I'm telling you, dude, there are times where I'm just like, I'll wake up and my hand is on my head, and I'm just like, I remember half the dream or something like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep it on my head to see if, like, and all of a sudden, dude, like, half hour later, I was like, what the fuck did I dream about? I kept it on my head to see if it actually worked, and I forgot the dream.
Damn.
Like, it was the craziest shit, though. Like, it's...
I wonder if it's like a grounding thing.
Probably.
Like, I wonder if, like, you could remember your dreams better if you put, like, your hand or your feet on the ground.
But then, dude, I fucking Hadouken somebody, and my dream went into them. No.
That was so convincing.
I thought he was dead serious.
I really thought that you were very serious. Yeah.
I was like, I was not prepared for this podcast to go there.
Tastiest Dragon Ball Z character, too. Like,
I would.
yeah, mine have been... and the thing that, because I just recently started doing stand-up, like, I've been having these ones that are, like, it's almost like they're so real that I have to question if they happened or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I had a dream that I was on this past weekend with Theo on.
Okay.
Like, and I'm wondering if, like, but then, like, other nights I'll have ones where, like, I'm getting chased by a bear, or I'm, like riding a horse through, like, a medieval castle, you know? And you wonder if, like, there's... yeah, it's crazy, right?
What a gangster, bro.
Bro, I'm just like...
No, you gotta...
yeah.
If you're only listening to the audio, Brian actually has a horse here.
He's very good with the sound effects. But you wonder if, you know, like, when you have ones like that, with, like, that I'm on, like, this podcast that I listen to all the time, like, am I being pushed towards, like, it's almost like, it was like, to me, like,
Sorry,
you're still thinking about the horse?
No, I'm thinking about you on a horse, just like right through a medieval castle. Like, I just can't get it.
Like, he's tall to be on a
Right,
horse,
that's what I'm
too,
saying.
right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like his lanky ass. Probably
I don't even think about those things. Like,
Yeah.
Like, my feet were still touching
Like,
the ground.
I haven't. Yeah, and my head is thinking, I was like, yo, is he serious on a horse? Because I've never pictured him A, on a horse, B, fucking serious. Like, do you have like a...
No, it was like a serious dream. It wasn't like...
I can't picture you serious on a horse, dude. Like, I can't picture you like William Wallace, okay? Like, it's just not there. But okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, this is fantastic. This is just confirming. But you wonder if, like, that almost gave me, like, this sense of, like, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm meant to be doing what I'm doing. And, like, like, we've talked about, like, sobriety and depression and things like that. And it's just like, it's crazy how something that like you're supposed to be doing or chasing some type of dream can come at the time where it seems the most inconvenient. Like, people look at me crazy, like, you want to pursue a career in something that takes years to get paid in, while you don't have a job and while you're quitting something that you've been doing for 15 years in your life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know why, but like, this is just the way it happened. Like,
we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
Who thought we'd be here?
Yeah, who thought we'd be here? Exactly. And you, for so long, I struggled with like, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right path? Where am I going? Like, this seems like I have no purpose. This seems like I have nothing. And then you're finally doing something that maybe, just maybe, is allowing you to get... He's still thinking about the horse, bro. He's still thinking about it.
I mean, it's a hard thing to get out of your head, man.
No, it is. Well, I'm listening to what you're saying because I'm like, I have a whole thing behind this, by the way.
Okay, good.
Like, I believe that I can analyze your dream.
Okay, all right.
So this,
Perfect.
But I'm picturing that serious fucking JP face right through the fucking castle.
This thing?
No, dude, you're serious as fuck in my head. Okay.
I'm hitting the thing.
Okay.
And you wonder if maybe you're finally able to like get to that point, and sleep is so important, so like it's finally allowing that little bit of your subconscious that you were suppressing for so long. It's funny because there's a guy on a horse behind you in that picture.
Holy shit, there is. Wow.
The patriarchy.
Yeah, right? Holy shit.
It's a Texas flag, not a Confederate flag.
Thanks.
That's for the people. That's not for you. I try to say like the most serious thing I've said the whole time, and you just can't stop picturing me on a horse now.
I
feel like
that is ingrained in my fucking
I feel
head
like you're
right now.
picturing me as like the guy in the guy who like goes around and like makes the decree.
I
in,
got
like, the town.
I'm seeing you as the mountain from Game of Thrones, like on a horse, because it's the only height difference that I can put together in my head.
I have
Like, opening up the scroll, like, the emperor decrees.
No, I have him with a serious face on, head down, like, right, but through
Do that again?
but I have him like with the serious face, head down, hands on the reins, going over that small little like bridge.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're going through the castle, right? Like you're going
Over the moat.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you're on your way to go tackle something, right? Like and you're serious about it. My question would be this, and sorry to cut you off. My bad.
No. That was just I pretty much said the essence of all of it.
Okay. What,
I can't believe I got through that.
Why medieval times? Do you know or not? Not at all.
Why do I think it's medieval times? Or like what about it makes it medieval?
What is medieval like? What does it mean to you? What kind of setting does it give you?
Oh, that's so interesting because I always think that like
Game of Thrones didn't end the right way.
No, but I always have this feeling of that I was like born in the wrong time.
Okay.
That I would have done better in it, or that I would have like been able to be more of myself at a time when everybody wasn't advertising themselves.
Okay, you ready for this then? With that answer? Okay, this is my...
Here we go, bro. This is like... Brian took mushrooms out of my fridge while he was in the bathroom. Like...
There's Waldo. Yeah. No.
I don't know why I looked like...
Yeah, you definitely looked out the window.
I'm like, oh shit, he finally showed up?
Speaking of, and I'll come right back to this point. Have you heard about the dude that went into the library, took the Where's Waldo book, went in there, took him out of every single fucking page, and painted in like perfectly that there was no Waldo, and then he put the book back into the library. That's
evil.
It's sinister.
That's bro. Evil. That is going to fuck with somebody. Somebody's going to therapy for that.
That's the Mandela effect.
Yeah,
there really wasn't a Waldo.
Yeah, dude, like, no, it was just pictures of caves and shit.
His name was Greg, not Waldo. What the fuck?
So, all right.
Here we go, bro.
You said that there was a time where you can, you wish that you could go back to a time where it was different, right? Where, I guess, accepted, or everybody was kind of,
Yeah, like I wish that I could almost like reframe how I looked at those things and go back and be more of myself, because I feel like that would be more rewarding. And
Okay.
I mean, you obviously can't, but
Okay, perfect. Okay. You jumped into something new recently, right?
very new, very scary.
Took a risk, right? Felt vulnerable.
More vulnerable than I've ever felt in my life.
Okay.
Yeah, this, when
Get-
you pursue something that is like
And you've
your
been
dream when you're a teenager and you never tell anybody about it and you treat it like it's a joke.
right. Okay. The setting that you just described medieval times as, right? You felt comfortable in that room with people that thought the same way. Everybody kind of was like I said it the next day on Instagram that the community of all the comedians and the people who were in there were very supportive. Right? Everybody was extremely supportive.
Well, no, I was like on the horse by myself. I'll describe it like this. I was on the horse by myself, but I felt like I had the strength of more than myself.
Okay. In medieval times.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the setting. The setting is you believe that you were maybe born at a different time and stuff like that. You belong somewhere else, right? This is the first time you're going somewhere else. That you're belonging somewhere else that you've never tried before.
Yeah.
Okay? On top of, you got on the horse. You are on the horse now, my friend. Okay? And you're taking it...
Fuck.
and you're taking it fucking serious.
Yeah.
Right? That's the serious face that I laugh at.
Yeah.
But you got on the horse and you're going. And it's in a new setting.
Yeah.
You should be in a different place. You don't believe that you belong here.
You've been
You
talking
belong
about
in
moving
another.
for weeks, man. You got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's your dream, dude.
Yeah.
Okay? The setting is you don't
In Texas.
you don't
Horses.
I got it. I'm done. No fucking way, man. No, finish what you're saying and then I'll explain what you just said.
So the thing is that you have the setting of, you know what? Like I belong somewhere else, or I belong to be born at another time or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, this is your quote unquote time.
Yeah.
Right? You jumped into it.
Yeah.
Not only that, some people say just jump on the horse. Okay?
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? You're not gonna know until you you're on the horse and you're taking it serious. Your serious face. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And you're riding through the castle, you're riding through the area, you're taking it with stride.
Yeah, and it's like a thing that a lot of people don't take seriously.
That's my interpretation of it.
No, that's crazy, man. No, and the reason like that you just said that, like literally today, I turned on when I was going to pick him up. I put on Shane Gillis was on this past weekend with Theo on, and one of the first things that he brought up was how Shane had moved to Austin, Texas recently. Okay. And me and him have been talking about how like we want to move and we want to get out of here and things like that. And the fact that like, turn around, bro. Where's that poster from? No, look below it.
Texas, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like and it's because I've been there and I went there. But like it starts to like make more and more sense of like maybe it's not like an accident that's what they were talking about. Or that came up, or that I was on a horse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That for all this stuff to make sense.
Yeah.
It's an odd thing to think about.
It's pretty cool though, man.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of now I credit this to being able to and I don't want this to be
No, and I don't want to turn this into like a whole thing that's all about me either, but.
No, but like what I mean is I don't want people to think like, hey, this dude, he can analyze dreams. No, that's not it. That
you
is
just know me well enough that
no.
that you can
But the thing is, usually I'll ask questions, right, about certain things. That's why I asked you what medieval times to you meant, right?
Yeah.
And I can put things together. Dude, I'm telling you right now, 5 years ago I couldn't do that, and I couldn't do that. I strictly say that God. I read a verse, and it was talking about Daniel. And there was a whole thing about
Damn, Daniel.
yeah, well, dude. So this is the craziest verse, right? So there was I think it was King Ebenebra. No, I can never say his name right. Right? But
I think I know this one. I'm gonna dig deep into my Bible knowledge right here. I
Okay.
believe his name was Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes. Look at you. Look at you.
What's the deal with kings from the Bible?
Your mom's so proud right now.
So the whole thing was if somebody could guess his dream and analyze it, and if you couldn't, you were murdered. Like, how fucked up is that, right?
Yeah.
Not only do you have to analyze the dream, you have to know what it was without anybody telling you.
Damn.
So Daniel did it and they even say any astrologer, any psychic, any palm reader, they went through everything, could not do it. And Daniel came up and Daniel did it. They still threw him in the fire because the king was freaked out about how he knew it, and B, how he could tell him exactly the meaning of it. So they threw him in the fire regardless.
Yeah.
3 people got thrown in the fire. 4 people came out unscathed. 1 was Jesus.
Oh shit.
So
That's crazy.
yeah. So since I read that, I was like, holy shit. And
That was in VeggieTales, or?
huh?
That's why he's got red hair.
So dude, since then though, like I was like, that's crazy, and it clicks easy with me, fucking dreams. So I don't get it from certain things or like palm readers or not. No, I get it straight in my opinion, and in my straight belief and faith, I get that from God. And at any given point, that shit could be taken away from me.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's crazy too, because I don't think I've ever said anything to you about a dream I've had, because I never dreamed for the entire time I've known you for
Yeah.
the most part. Like, I've never came to you and been like, yo, what does this mean?
yeah.
Like, not, or even just told you like what it was.
So you want to hear a fucked up dream about, or a fucked up, I'm going to butcher this. There's a story in the Bible about a guy who's getting made fun of by a bunch of kids. Okay. About, how he looked, and I think it was like if he was bald or how old he was getting, whatever, right? He asked and prayed for a bear to come down, and the bear came and mauled all the fucking children. It's a fucked up.
This is in the Bible,
This
or
is-
is this just a story?
No, this is in the Bible. It's in the Bible. It's in the Old Testament, I believe.
Jesus, you're telling all the exciting
Oh, I was gonna
stories
say
right
the
now,
OG
bro.
or the new one.
Yeah.
They're both pretty old.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, but it's like Old Testament. But if
Yeah.
you take, like, you're saying you got chased by a bear. Bear's pretty fucking scary. And one dude
Yeah.
prayed for a fucking bear to come in, and it mauled all the fucking kids. And the dude was so, like, he was so upset that he was being made fun of by kids. That's what he wished for, to get rid of these kids by a fucking bear. And the dude came in and fucking mauled all the children.
See, I just think I was imagining the bear because like it was at the time where I started watching The Bear, the TV show.
Oh,
And
Cocaine
he,
Bear?
like, and he like has the dream where he's like letting the bear out
Out
of
of
the
the
cage.
cage.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
but in a lot of ways, like that's symbolic of like him facing his fears and like I wanted to be better than everybody, but like what I really wanted was to be here with my family and like you know,
Yeah. Oh, shit.
yeah.
So I do have a closing
Okay.
question. All right.
I know it's gonna be hard to top the dream thing now. I'm just saying.
What are some things that you guys, I don't want to say goals, but what is one of the mountain peaks that you guys, and I say one of them because once you find one, there's going to be another one, and the mountain's going to keep getting higher, and I know that. What are some of the mountain peaks, or just maybe the next one, that you guys are looking to possibly conquer or bring to an audience in the future?
I feel bad, bro. You must be. Your stomach has been growling this.
It does
whole
it all the time.
You've been.
It does it all. It does it all.
I feel so bad because we're just like sitting here talking. He's like, this man is starving right now.
No, dude. You know what the weird thing is? People always say
just
that.
never
They're like,
stops.
"Are you?" No, it always does this.
Yeah.
It always fucking. It does it. It'll do it after I eat.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. You want me to?
You go
So-
first. Yeah. Go ahead.
So we've been very clear that the intention of this podcast is to put out things that have helped us, talk about our experiences, talk about our journeys, this way that somebody else can be positively affected and take something from it, and hopefully it helps them in the long run. But what I wrote it in the book I gave you. Yeah. I signed it that way. Mm-hmm. For me, I think one of the best ways for us to help people is to really be able to expand the amount of people that we listen to. So I would like to take this to somewhere where we're charting like top 5 for a mental health podcast. That's the goal for me long term.
That's awesome.
I don't care how long it takes to get there. We'll get there at some point.
Yeah. I think the best things take their time.
Yep.
You know what I mean? People that want a flash in the pan, that's all it's going to be, is a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's going to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're not looking when we post clips on Instagram to go viral for one clip. Like if you look at the content we put out, everything is very much the same. It's all positivity. We're not trying to lure people in with like hooks on shit.
And I think we tried that too, kind of like.
Yeah.
There were points where we tried that, like, and it just didn't feel like us.
It's not who we are, what we are. I know for me, and we've talked about it enough where I believe it's something that you truly want to, is just to help people. Because, like, it can be. You talked about it, like, when you first got sober and, like, how hard that is. Like, and I went through that too. Like, you're trying something new and it's worrying about the doubt and, like, the judgment from other people. Mm-hmm. If we can help other people realize that you're not alone in that, and that it's something that we all go through, and that anybody can get through it, you just got to be positive. I would like to preach the power of your mind to people, how powerful your mind is and how powerful your thoughts are, and how if you get those two things aligned, you can really go anywhere you want.
Yeah, that's very well said.
True
That was
statement,
very well said. And I'll build upon that on a level that's kind of, I guess, like you couldn't like define it. But I think like I definitely speak for this as myself, but I think that I speak for you too, and this is that, like, I think personally both of our goal is that doing this makes us, every single time we do this, it makes it a little bit, you inch closer and closer and closer to your authentic self.
Yeah.
And it would be hard to, like, you know, because there's no, I feel like till the day you die, you're trying to, like, if that's your pursuit, you're always going to be pursuing more towards that. That goal is never, like, done, you know? But I think that just on a level of, like, the creativity and the, like, authenticity that doing this and being able to put this out there with no expectations, no expected reward back, is just like our way of being able to give. And if I hope in some way that whether you're listening now or you're listening to this episode 5-10 years from now, that you'll be able to see the change and the journey that we went on, that we started this with. Like, we don't really know where we're going, and we're on this constant journey till the day we take our last breath of trying to find what is your purpose, where is your authentic self, like, where does that place rely. And I think just making it the goal of, like, being able to continue this, being able to do this more, and being able to share more and give more and be kind of unapologetic in the way that we do this and stay true to ourselves in that. I think that
you can hear it louder now.
Yeah, bro. I'm
sorry. That's what I'm laughing at. Like, I hear everything.
He just waits till I say something deep and is like, hilarious.
No, but the thing is, you don't know if I'm laughing or it's my stomach. Yeah. That's the bad part.
Absolutely. But I think that, and I think that that's kind of a good place to start, because I think that a lot of times, like, yeah, obviously, like, it's great. Like, I want, like, us to be top 5 and to get to this point where we're reaching all these people. But I think it's important to almost, like, have a goal that doesn't have this definition of numbers or viewers or likes or comments or even, money that I believe that we'll eventually make from this. I think it's important that we state that, like, that is the real place that we're trying to get to. That, like, this isn't about being better than anybody or proving that this is who we are. Like, this is just about we're trying to reach that authentic place where the present moment is the only thing that matters. And in some ways, I feel like we're there, and I also feel like we've got a long way to go to get there.
Yeah, it's like, how can we be the best versions of ourselves while also serving you? Because that's what it comes down to. Let's go back to the Bible, man. How can we serve?
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
There's a lot of people don't think that way either on how they can serve. They only think about how they can get. A lot of people think like that, and it's if it was changed just a little bit, just a teeny tiny bit, you could see that those random acts of kindness, right, being spread around just through a tad bit more. All of a sudden, if you have 7 more people that do it today, well, maybe 3 more people would see it. Mm-hmm. So now tomorrow you have 10 more people doing it.
Yeah. You never know how far a random act of kindness is going to go.
Yeah.
Like, you pay for somebody in line behind you at Dunkin' Donuts. You don't know where that person's going to after and how they're going to carry that with them. Not even how the cashier's going to take it.
Yeah. And it's not like I read this in the 7 Spiritual Laws yesterday, which is that a lot of times you think that I have nothing to give, or I don't have money. I don't have resources. I don't have connections to people. And like, I can't give of that. And it really is as simple as, and it may sound fucking out there, but it's just like, even if you're walking on the street and you send like silent love to somebody, or if, like maybe like somebody invites you over to their house and you don't have the money to bring, a gift or something like that. It's just like, you can bring a compliment. You can bring your energy, and that is just as, even though we live in such a material world where money is obviously, like, everybody thinks it's the most important thing, and having this and owning a home and having a hot girlfriend and having a successful podcast or whatever it might be seems to be like the most important thing.
Yeah.
But giving of even if like you smile at the person in line at the grocery store. I don't know why I keep going back to the grocery store, but
it's the most common place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, or you like you said, you're walking on the street and you know what I mean? Like, how many times like I walk around in this fucking town and I just say, "Hi, how are you?" and people look at me like I have 10 fucking heads.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, that happens everywhere. Like, it's not like it's unique to this place. But it's just like, okay, but like, if your intention in that was to get something back,
you're gonna carry that with you all day.
Yeah, but if your intention was to just give of that with nothing in return, like, how could your heart be in the wrong place? Like, that's what we talked about when we started this, which was that, like, if we're trying to give and we're trying to help and we want to be, I guess, people who, like, a lot of people, I believe, who watch this never thought that we'd be the people saying these things.
Right.
Start there, Be able to, like, if our intention is in the right place and you're giving of, we just want, like, if there's anything we can say, like, if you see us doing this and that even just inspires you to smile at one person, or as simple as just like saying thank you for, things that maybe are expected that you don't have to say it for.
Yeah.
Or, like, it's as simple as, like, you're at the, like, I was at the grocery store the other day and, like, an older woman asked me, like, can you read, she was, like, looking at the nutrition things and she's like, can you tell me what that number is? Like, I can't read it. And I'm not trying to, like, brag that, like, I did that, but just, like, I wonder if, like, did she ask somebody else and that person was just like, I ain't got time for you, lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always
And
say
it was like a way bigger number than she thought. She was like, "Oh, I don't want," you know what I mean? And like, I don't know, what the thing that she was looking for was, but that could have been like.
I get that too, because I mean, you don't know what happened beforehand. You don't know and you don't know what happened. What would have happened if you denied it?
Yeah.
You know, maybe there's something in there that she couldn't afford, or something that she can't read because she's not supposed to have, or
Or maybe she could read it and she just wanted to have a nice interaction with somebody.
That's possible,
I
too.
don't know.
Yeah.
But we get very caught up these days, and then like I'm certainly guilty of it too, which is that like we give of things or we do something because we believe that we deserve something back.
Yeah.
And it's just not, as hard as it is to say that, but like that's just not the way to go about it, you know?
Yeah.
Like
I would always say, like, because I heard this from somewhere too, and I'm liking that somebody asks you for something, right? And it's great because usually you need somebody to initiate something before it's kind of given, usually, right? So I forget what it was. It's something I listened to years ago, and it said, I think it was on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and they said,
great guy.
yeah. And he was like, wherever he got it from first, they said, initiate a smile first. And it's like, oh, shit. Because it's contagious.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no shit. And I tried it, and it fucking works. Like, again, you guys are talking about, you don't know where that's going to lead to. You have no idea where they're going. You have no idea what kind of day they had yesterday. You have no idea what kind of morning they've had already. Initiate the smile first. And it's like, wow, you could be game-changing somebody's complete day, you know? So.
And you always, like, it's just important to remind yourself that, like, even if you feel like you have nothing to give, like, there is always something to give. And there's people who have so much less who just naturally give. So, like, if they can do it, like, why can't you? You know, and then, but then like, programming your mind to that, like, you realize, like, oh, wow, I do have these things that I can give that I wouldn't have even thought about.
Yeah.
Because I was in a state of what can I gain versus what can I give.
100%. I like the mindset of that, like, trickles into your guys' podcast. You know what I mean? Like, and then it creates like this big wave of like what you guys actually do on a podcast. You know what I mean? And it's great that you guys don't do just audio. You guys show the video. You guys show the visual, and it's important because people need to be a little bit more vulnerable. And like, I do audio, but you guys have the capability of actually doing these visuals. So if like somebody does break down, you know how somebody looks like when they're being, open and honest and vulnerable, and like in that state of like, well, fuck, well, here we go. You know what I mean? So you guys have that goes into your podcast, and then you exploit it in the best way possible. You know? Where can everybody find you guys? On what platforms can they find you?
We'll have all the stuff in the show notes, but we're on Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts. You can go to the YouTube channel, Who Thought We'd Be Here. Everything is in our biography on Instagram as well. Yeah. And but just before we get done, I want to thank you, Brian, for having us on and having this conversation, asking these questions so we can get open. And proud of you, man, for staying sober for as long as you have, because that's a big thing, and a lot of people don't get the reinsurance for what they're doing, and you don't hear it enough. People don't tell people that enough, like that they're proud of you. So just want to let you know that, and thank you for having us on here.
I appreciate that, man, and thank you for allowing me to use your recording shit. So.
And yeah, I mean, as somebody, like, we've been friends for a long time, and I do feel like we just should acknowledge this moment. This is like a really full circle type of moment that, like, from where I do want to say this before we go anywhere, that like you have opened my mind up in such a way that, like, this may not even make sense to you, but like, I thought that when me and you became friends that I'd never be able to be close to you because, number one, you were sober and you weren't living the lifestyle that I was living. And number two, you're a religious guy. And like, for my whole life, I've look down upon that stuff. And I always thought that, like, I don't want to be close to any of that. I have such this negative connotation of it. And I hope you know that my relationship with my mom and my brother is better because of you. Because you made me believe that you can have different beliefs from somebody and still be close to them. And that you can be close to people without looking down on them and saying that I'm better than you. I hope you know that. I really do.
I know it now. I didn't know that before.
I hope you know that, man.
I'm glad that
it's a big thing. And my relationship with them is stronger now than it's ever been. For multiple reasons. But you really did open me up to that. Because I was open with you about things that I could never be open with them about. And it opened me up to the fact of they don't all think that we need to be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know it, that it affected you that way in a good way. So
I'm glad I said it then.
yeah. I had no idea. So, I mean, I'm glad that it did. And I mean, thank you for sharing that because like both of you, you're saying that, you're proud of me for, staying sober, and you're saying that what I've already said has helped you in life. So
yeah, well, just the way you carry yourself. It's not even necessarily like, the way that, you never said anything specific or that was just like, oh,
you're a powerful person, man. You're a powerful person.
Good energy
you can feel it off of you when you're in the room.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we also should mention that, like, when Brian walked in here, he walked in with multiple gifts for both of us.
gotta give away some shit.
And I said to you, I was like, this is what it's like to be friends with Brian. He's just giving everywhere he goes. So, like, and I also like to think that, like, the fact that you were able to, you just did this podcast and you started it before I even knew you. But in some way, I like to think that in my subconscious, I thought that, like, well, Brian can do it. So, like, why can't I do it?
You know what? I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I don't see myself in that.
You should though.
In that way.
You should though. Man.
I probably should, but I think you guys both know what it's like not to think of yourself in that way of not being held here. Do you think that you're kind of here at times? So it's like self-worth, right? Mm-hmm. And working on that.
We've been big on the last a lot of wild things. I shouldn't say wild, but a lot of important things have happened to us over the last couple weeks, and it's hard, especially as men, to give yourself some credit, man.
Yeah.
Nobody like you made yourself like this. Nobody forced you to be this way. Yes, there are people along the way who influenced you, who did certain things and maybe made you think of something in a different way, but nobody made you go out there and be kind. You did that.
Yeah.
So give yourself some credit, man.
I actually appreciate.
But don't get too big of a head.
No, we did discuss ego. No, I appreciate the kind words from both of you because man. It's the affirmations sometimes need to be said for things to happen, and other times it's good to hear, even though sometimes it's still uncomfortable to hear because you're not used to it. Right?
Yeah.
So
it's hard to take a compliment sometimes.
Yeah, and I've been that person. But I thank both of you. I think you guys have no ceiling on what you guys can do, and I'm looking forward to being. I'm not gonna be a passenger, but if you hook up like a trailer, okay, I'll at times
you could be the horse.
Yeah. That's it.
All right, thank you guys so much for listening. Check out the Ikonical brand and podcast. Have a good one.
All that glitters and gold. I had money, been broke. I've been high, I've been low.